Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, a podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Groot Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples Ginos, originator of the Zergy draft strategy. In this podcast, Blake and I are going to complete our annual 8-episode series in which we go team by team comparing notes on our projections for the 2025-26 season. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend. It's Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
I am absolutely jacked to get into this with you, buddy. Nothing feels better than taking this series to completion with you, my friend. Okay, so yeah, I'm good, man. It's this is episode 8. I just remember doing this last year. We're like, how the hell are we going to do this? And we did it last year, and we did it again this year. And I just really love this stuff. But I am looking forward to getting into some of our other content after this great episode. Amazing sleepers, busts, ADP reaches, all that stuff is coming your way. So stick with us, folks.
That is correct. It is always a bit of a grind to get through all of this. It's like, I don't know, if you look back, it's probably like 18-ish hours of content in total by the time we're all said and done here. But I think it is, as we've said, some of the best stuff we do. So we got to get through it. We got to lay the groundwork for the fantasy season, go team by team, really get a picture of what we think is going on with these teams, with these players, and then we work outwards from there. And we now actually have audio working. Unfortunately, I had banged a little bit too hard in the previous run at this, and I seem to have destroyed all my inputs, and so we had to retake. But I think we're in it for good this time, Blake. Are we feeling good?
We're good. Don't worry, folks. We got the vid on that. I'll release that on a separate channel. It's really good stuff. Nate's just losing his mind. His hat fell off. It was an epic display. So yeah, there you go.
All right, let's dig in. Some team called Vancouver that I know nobody here cares about, but they lost Pius Suter, Dakota Joshua, key addition, really only Evander Kane there. Overall vibes in terms of the plus and minus of the offseason, Blake?
I don't know. I think people are still kind of stung from last season and the vibes and all the drama that went on there with the team. And then Tocchet leaving just kind of was a surprise as well. And we'll talk about the coaching here in a second. But yeah, I think we're still cautiously optimistic here. I think Evander Kane is a really low risk add here for the Canucks. So that's a nice piece. Losing Pius Suter, that might affect the team a little more, certainly in reality, not for fantasy, but yeah, he is a great defensive center. Vancouver Canucks had a great penalty kill last year, and he was a big part of it. So yeah, we don't know yet. I think Evander Kane, they can sell that, and I think there's going to be a good opportunity for the man.
I tend to agree. Yeah, it's I mean, he is a Vancouver boy at the end of the day, so it's a little bit of a homecoming in that regard for him. I think he's settled in. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff about like, oh, Evander Kane is such a distraction. Like, realistically, all of that is like 3 years in the rear view. It's just like everybody still has that in their mind. It's kind of like when the coach has changed like twice, but everybody still thinks that the team plays the same style from that like coach 2 coaches ago,
right?
And they just like haven't updated anything that they've thought in the last 3 years. I feel like that kind of applies to Evander Kane to some extent. Obviously, we don't really know what's going on with the guy, but there's definitely not been any public stuff. And so I think he's in a spot now where he just wants to play. He just wants to make his money, play as well as he can, and kind of coast on out of his career at this point. And more power to him in that. Let's talk about the coaching, though. Adam Foote is promoted to head coach of the Canucks after Rick Tocchet leaves. This is obviously a guy who came up under Tocchet, purportedly has a lot of the same leanings as Rick Tocchet does, was Quinn Hughes' favorite, according to most of the rumblings that we heard throughout the process of the Canucks deciding their head coach. What else can you tell us about Adam Foote?
You know, it's been a quiet offseason in terms of information coming from Adam Foote, which is a little bit of a surprise, actually. Mm-hmm. I was expecting a lot more visibility, and it seems to me that he's kind of doing things behind the scene. I have read some articles where he had a great kind of a leaders meeting, where he had Thatcher Demko, he had Quinn Hughes, and then Elias Pettersson actually flew in from Sweden to be at this meeting kind of on short notice. So
nice.
That's a really good sign. And he's having Zoom meetings with everybody on the team. So he's trying to get people together. But one of the big things he's preaching is kind of giving the room back and the accountability back to the players, which is an interesting strategy, right? Like, I think that can go a couple ways, right? Yeah. I mean, you have to have good leaders on the team to really make that work, right? And Quinn Hughes, I would argue, is a pretty damn good leader. But we'll see. I think we're going to, this was a safe hiring for the Canucks, right? Because I think that Tocchet, if he would have been back this year, we would have seen the bounce back anyway, right? Last year has many things that were going crazy. If Tocchet was back this year, the team would have bounced back. So I think having Adam Foote here, I think we're going to see a similar style to Rick Tocchet, a low event style, defensive hockey. But he has mentioned in interviews as well that he knows that they need to generate more offense, and some of that offense needs to be off the rush, right? They need to at least be somewhat of a threat off the rush. Right now, they've been a limp noodle. So I think that, we'll time's going to tell that there's not a lot of information out there. This is a defensive guy, but we got to look at his assistants too. And I don't know if you have too much information on the assistants, but from what I've read, just sounds like kind of vibes-based guys as well, right? So I think they're really focusing on getting that room kind of humming, at least in terms of their mental. And we'll see what happens out there on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I'm most interested in for fantasy, obviously, is Brett McLean is going to run the power play. It sounds like he's coming off of the last 2 years with the Iowa Wild, the Minnesota Wild's affiliate. There's only so much information available about these guys, but it was a spot where Foote was obviously pretty keen on the acquisition as an assistant coach. And I think it's a young guy. You tend to, at least I tend to, with the assistants in particular, I like the younger guys because they are actively trying to get better. They're not set in their ways. They're a lot of older NHL coaches are too, don't get me wrong, but at least the younger guys who haven't proven themselves and are coming up to the NHL level for the first time, they have a reason they're being promoted, right? They're coming up from the NHL. It's not just a retread assistant from somewhere else in the league that you're like, oh yeah, this guy because he's safe, right? And he's a guy that no one's going to look twice at me if I hire this guy. I like to see guys coming up from successful AHL programs, so I'm a little bit optimistic about that. Obviously, they do need to do some more stuff with the power play. We need to, hopefully for fantasy, get away from this super defense first, defense heavy style that they had under Tocchet. Get us a little bit more offense, maybe some rush offense as you're alluding to. But I think a big one is the power play, where I think really there are 3 locks. You have Quinn Hughes, you have Elias Pettersson, and you have Brock Besser as the returning locks on the power play. And then you've got 4 guys I think that you can all make cases for. You got Jake DeBrusk, you got Filip Chytil, you've got Connor Garland, and you've got the newcomer Evander Kane, all in contention for those 2 remaining spots. How are you looking at that as of today? Do you think this is a spot where we could see some rotation throughout the course of the season? What's your take on here on September 14th without any prior information?
Yeah, I feel like they are going to rotate some players through there, right? I mean, you've got Jake DeBrusk, who had a really nice season with the team last year on the power play, scored a bunch of power play goals, looked fine out there. You got Filip Chytil is fully healthy and ready to go. So does he get a look there as, kind of a second center? If they need, like they got Pettersson out there, can take draws, Filip Chytil as well. That would make some sense. But then you got Evander Kane, who is obviously going to be a great net front guy, but he hasn't had power play 1 in forever. Right. So, I mean, I kind of think that Kane will probably start on power play 2 and maybe just have a cup of coffee there on power play 1. And then Connor Garland, to me, has a real good shot as well. We've seen him have some success there. He's a puck hound, right? This guy's great in the boards. He's great at facilitating chances and shots for his teammates. So if I had to guess right now, I'd say Filip Chytil, DeBrusk, Besser, Hughes, and Pettersson.
Yeah, I think that is probably the most likely for me as well at this time. I mean, it's definitely up in the air. I don't want to be too prescriptive because that's probably, if we get too prescriptive, it's going to look stupid in approximately like 1 week when we get the first look at it, right? So I don't want to be too prescriptive, but if I had to say here at this time, I would be leaning in those directions. In terms of how I ended up projecting it, for ice time, I have DeBrusk at 2 minutes 45 seconds. I have Chytil and Garland both at 2.5. So in terms of the actual time on ice, that's where I landed, but I can see it in a lot of different ways. I think Chytil he's definitely a great even strength player, but the power play is still a bit unknown. He was never really given that role. He got a bit of it in Vancouver upon arrival.
Yep.
And then, I mean, it was only like 15 games. Now it's a new coach, new power play. Like, what do you really make of those 15 games? You kind of throw it out and see if he can fit in a new system here. But I really think that whatever they do, they really have to open up PD to shoot. That is like the number one priority in my mind. Hughes is going to do what Hughes does. He's going to open up everything for the entire power play. They should let him roam, do whatever he wants to do, let him play with his instincts, and let him do literally whatever he wants to do, because that will be the best case scenario for the offense 99 times out of 100. But I think they've got to find some pretty intentional ways to get Elias Pettersson open to shoot the puck, because that is what's going to unlock this power play in my mind to becoming a top half, at least in the league, power play. If they can do that, then I think they've got a shot of having something decent here, because yeah, you do have the elite level distributor in Hughes and you do have the shooter in Pettersson. Those are the number one and number two things that you have to build a power play in my mind, and they do have those things. And if they can make the pieces fit around that and they can open up those two players to do what they do best, then I think you've got the basis, at least, for a solid power play. All right, let's dig in on projections. Let's start with Pettersson here. For myself, I have him for 31 goals, 43 assists, 74 points. You have him for, I guess it depends how we round this, but basically exactly the same. Let's go with the same, 31, 43 for 74. So obviously we're seeing Pettersson pretty similarly here. We're expecting a pretty solid bounce back from the debacle that last year was. We have the reports coming in that he's 6 kilos heavier, and then the report, and then Quinn Hughes said, I don't even know how much a kilo is. 2.2 pounds for your reference there, Quinn. But yeah, it's a good sign, I think, in my mind. Like, as long as he's getting stronger and not just getting heavier for the sake of getting heavier, and he can still skate and do everything else, he's still as agile as he was previously, then getting a little bit heavier in that regard should help him in pretty much everything. And this is a guy who plays a lot more physically than people realize. I'm for 107 hits, 97 blocks. I think he's really solid in that arena. And this is the player I think that they have to rely on to make the offense go. Obviously, Quinn Hughes is going to make that happen from the back end, but you have to have a number one center who can make the offense go when the rest of the guys aren't going. And I think that Pettersson at least has a chance to be that again this year.
Yeah, everything is going to be kind of reliant on this guy. He's a lot of pressure on his shoulders, that's for sure. I mean, with the contract he has, with the narrative that's gone on, with losing JT Miller basically because of his rift with PD, right? That's well documented. So yeah, lots of pressure, and I think he's risen to the task, at least here in the offseason. Initial reports seem that way anyway. He, like I said early on, he flew across from Sweden back into wherever to have this leaders meeting with Adam Foote and Quinn Hughes. So that's a great sign. This guy's dialed in. He's gained some weight. Something that I saw a lot with PD last year, big time red flags, were how easily he was knocked off the puck. Like, this is a guy that can enter the zone pretty well and set up chances. And last year, it just seemed like he had no control over the puck. And when he did, he was just getting bodied off of it pretty easily. So that's something I noticed. And then his hesitancy to shoot, right? It was really a problem. When you look at the actual numbers, and it bears that out, right? At even strength, his shots on goal per 60 were down. On that power play, they were way down, right? This is a guy that he had almost 14 shots per 60 on the power play. Last year, he had 9.8. Right. That's crazy. And his power play points showed that as well from year to year. Like in 23-24, he had 31 power play points, elite, right? Last year, 16 power play points, right? And he did miss games, but that's still a big haircut to take off your power play points there. So all this to say, I think that we're going to get as motivated as a PD as we can possibly see. Whether he has the mental kind of capacity to push through all the noise that is still going to happen, like, there's a good chance the Canucks can get up to a slow start. Good chance PD can get up to a slow start, right? How does he handle that, right? In the past, he's kind of withered away. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll see really kind of what this guy's made of here. There's a lot going on this season. Lots of stuff about Quinn Hughes too, like, and his brother talking, right? Like, Quinn Hughes is basically saying, like, we'll see what happens this year. If we win, like, great. If not, I don't know. It's not that fun. And basically implying like, yeah, if we have another year like last year, I'll probably be out ski, right? So just even more pressure for a guy like Pettersson to really perform and kind of put up or shut up. So that all said, yeah, I'm expecting a bounce back. I think we have a pretty safe projection for this guy. And also the value in draft day for Pettersson, I think is really solid. This is a guy that if you can get him in the 4th or 5th round, that feels like found money to me. I don't think there's any way we see another 58-point pace out of him. I think it's going to be 70 points or bust. And we've seen a ceiling case as well, 102 points. I don't think I'll reach that again. That was crazy efficiency, IPP, on ice shooting percentage, all those things. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think he's going to bounce back here this year, Nate?
Yeah, I do think he'll bounce back. I do question how much he can bounce back. It's not a great offensive environment.
Yep.
Like even if everything kind of comes to fruition that Adam Foote wants to see this year, they are more dangerous off the rush. They are more dangerous just in general on the power play. Things are working better. Pettersson's more involved. If all of those things come to fruition, that's still probably best case scenario, like point per game PD to me in this system with the group of players around him. I don't see another elite forward on this team who he can play with, basically. I think he can be a consistent point per game player with better line mates, but frankly, I don't see that player on this team at this point. And it's just going to take more from him individually for him to hit that. So I don't think the ultimate ceiling is there, but I do think a solid bounce back is in the cards here. I tend to believe just in previous talent, like it's pretty rare for people to go full Jonathan Huberdeau and just completely disintegrate, especially on the same team in this way. I just don't think that's the case here with Pettersson. I think he's going to bounce back and at least be in this 70-point range. And with a little bit of upside, I could see him getting back towards 80. But yeah, I feel relatively confident and I feel relatively secure with the peripheral floor that we talked about. Let's talk about some of the potential wingers he could play with, though. Jake DeBrusk, 27 goals, 26 assists, 53 points for me. 26 goals, 25 assists, 51 points for you. I still think DeBrusk has a little something here. We've seen glimpses of it. He really has been inconsistent, has been the biggest problem with Jake DeBrusk, and that's shown up in both places that he's played at this point, Boston and Vancouver. Just 1 year, obviously, so far in Vancouver, and a tough year at that. So maybe you want to forgive him a little bit there, but at this point, it's on him to kind of reverse the narrative that he is a little bit inconsistent with his play. He'll go on some crazy hot streaks where everybody will be like, oh, wow, this guy's amazing. He scored 10 goals in his last, month or something like that. And then you'll look up at the end of the year and he's got 25 goals on the year. And you're like, wait a second, how did he only score 15 goals in the other 70 games? And that just might be who Jake DeBrusk is at the end of the day. But it is a little bit exciting to think about the potential of a guy who maybe still hasn't quite figured out how to be a night in, night out line one player. And maybe he does figure that out this year. Maybe somebody says to him on this new coaching staff for Vancouver will really click things in for him and he'll find that role here. So I will give some upside case where he could be like a 30 goal, 60 point guy. There is some upside case there for me, but I think more likely he's going to live in this 25-ish, 50 to 55-ish point range.
Yeah, I've been thinking about kind of Petey's line mates a lot here in the offseason. And he played mostly with Brock Besser and Jake DeBrusk last year, and they got caved in out there in terms of Corsi 4, right? The ice was tilted against them. They were, letting in a lot more shot attempts than they were, having shot attempts for. And I'm wondering, like, Petey should be the shooter. Besser is a shooter, and DeBrusk is a shooter. So, I was kind of just looking through the lineup here, and I'm really hoping that DeBrusk plays with Philip Hedl and Besser plays with Philip Hedl. And then we get Connor Garland and Evander Kane with Petey. That's how I'd like to see it. That's what makes sense to me in terms of like actual line construction. Because I don't think Jake DeBrusk is a top line player. I really don't. He's a top 6 player for sure. And I like what you said about his, that there's a ceiling of, 30 and 30 DeBrusk if everything goes right. But I mean, we saw last year, he went bonkers on the power play. Like he got 14 power play goals, only 19 power play points. So he had a really nice year there, but half of his goals on the year were on the power play, right? At even strength, he was stinky Magoo, right? It wasn't really happening. So he had a big time shooting percentage last year, which I expect to fall off a little bit. I don't know. I feel like they need to tinker with those lines. and get DeBrusk with someone like Philip Hedl, who can set up the play and set up chances and let DeBrusk be at the end of those passes, as opposed to like three guys that should be the one at the end of passes. And then all of a sudden you have Petey as the default facilitator, and now he's not shooting as much. He's not getting as many goals, right? Like, that's kind of the way I see it. So all that to say, yeah, DeBrusk is a fine fantasy asset. I've seen people drafting him in their drafts, and that's fine. I don't know. I'm not really interested. I don't think, like we said, the 60 points is ceiling DeBrusk, and that's if everything goes right. If he has just a bonkers year, he's able to go bonkers again on the power play and have a good performance at even strength. And I'm not sure I see that this year with this team. So I'm treating him like a 50-point player. And if you do that and pick him up, I think he's probably more like a kind of a top streamer level, maybe a streamer with benefits.
Yeah, I think in 12-team leagues, he's probably like, last few rounds. In some of our APL mocks, I've been picking him in like the 19th or 20th round. Like in somewhere in deeper leagues, that kind of range does make a little bit of sense to me. But I definitely hear you on, what can they figure out where they can get two lines that actually kind of point in the right direction. That's definitely going to be a huge key. And if that does come with Hedl and they can find some chemistry, then that might actually even be better at even strength for DeBrusk than what we saw last year. It is, pretty interesting to think through the scenarios here and try to find something that works. It does seem like they just generally do have more shooters than passers in their forward group here. Let's talk about another one, Brock Besser. I have him for 28 goals, 29 assists, 57 points. Him for 30 goals, 32 assists, 62 points. A little bit of a difference there, but in the end, right around this, 25 to 30 goal mark, right around this 60-ish point mark. We see it pretty similarly. I just think the role's really secure here for Besser. Even if it's not like the top line with PD the entire year, at least he's going to be out there a whole ton because, I mean, at the end of the day, who else is going to play all those minutes? It's going to be Brock Besser. He's kind of, I don't know if you would describe it as face of the franchise, but like he's been there a long time. He's got some seniority at least. And they did bring him back at the end of the day, and he wanted to stay at the end of the day. And I think that'll count for something.
You can't get a better looking face of the franchise. My God, when I talk about a beautiful, head of hair and a granite jawline, like this is what I'm talking about. Brock Besser, unbelievable. Very attractive man. He's also a pretty good hockey player too. I think you look at last year, the fact that he was even able to get 25 goals and 25 assists in what happened last year with the Canucks, like that's a small miracle. I feel like this guy's an absolute gamer. Again, in that same interview I read with Adam Foote, he singled out Brock Besser as like one of his best players, if not his best player in practice. This guy is very detailed. He's working his tail off out there. And there's a lot of noise with him too, right? Obviously, he wasn't even expecting to come back to the team. Yeah. So now we know that like he must feel ecstatic, right? He's got friends on this team. He wanted to stay, and they ended up getting the deal done at the last minute. So I feel like we're going to see a lighter Brock Besser, just a guy not gripping the stick as hard, right? And when he does that, he's a 30-30 guy to me. Obviously, he got a lot of his success playing with JT Miller, especially in 23-24, right? Miller's a great facilitator. Besser's at the end of passes. I also think on the power play, Brock Besser, because JT Miller, when he was here, played a different type of role. Besser, instead of playing on the flank, he started playing net front, right? And which is a little bit different for a guy that has a wrist shot like Brock Besser, right? So I'm wondering, again, with the power play, is he going to maybe go bumper position, or will they get him on the flank? There's so many things they can do, but I think it would behoove them to get Besser in better positions to use his shot, which is his best weapon, and get this guy back to like kind of 35-40 goal Brock Besser, because he has it in the bag. It's just, we'll see what happens, but I'm ecstatic for the guy. I think we're going to see a better season just because of the vibes, and like I said, I think he would be better suited with Philip Hedl, honestly. I think that's a move. We could have two top lines, right? A 1A, 1B. They're both going to get tons of minutes. Besser's going to get power play one. I really think that there's something there to having Philip Hedl with Brock Besser, someone who's able to kind of facilitate chances, gain the zone, and then Besser can just set up where he is and fire away. So that's kind of what I'm hoping happens here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible for Besser. Yeah, the shots on the power play were down again. Yeah, I'd be interested to see him. I feel like Brock Besser could pull that kind of Sam Reinhart role a little bit and be pretty successful there. They maybe don't have the guy, the the down low guy to feed it back up there
I don't
on the
think they do.
Canucks the way that Florida does. But yeah, that would at least be an interesting spot for him to get off that really effective shot. Like he's been over 20% in shooting percentage in 3 of the last 4 years, so he can definitely do that on the power play. All right, Philip Hedl, next up. I have him for 24 goals, 28 assists, 52 points. You have him for 24 goals, 34 assists, 58 points. This, I believe, is the biggest difference that we. Oh no, you have an even bigger difference on another player.
You knew I would. It's the
Teaser.
Canucks. Yeah.
It's the Canucks. Blake's just like miles higher on every player.
Wish
Everywhere.
casting.
Yeah. No, this is definitely possible for Hedl. I think it's still a little bit up in the air how well he fits, and if he does get some worse line mates throughout the year, like if they're really trying to make Petey go, then Hedl kind of gets the scraps, and I'm a little bit worried about that at even strength. I'm also maybe a little bit more worried about the power play as well than you might be, but either way, I do see the upside with Hedl. He really does show out in a lot of the metrics that we like here. Obviously, there's all the concussions that he's suffered over the years, and that's a little bit scary. But I mean, for where you might draft or even look at picking up Filipino throughout the year, you're not going to be too worried about the injury history. If he does get injured, you're on to the next thing, and you're not going to feel too bad about it. But if he is on top power play, I have some interest here.
Yeah. I mean, I projected him for just over 2.5 minutes. So yeah, kind of baking in. Yeah, he'll spend some time on power play 1. He'll get bumped off for a little bit, but at the end of the day, we'll be around like 235 on the season. And that would represent a career high of power play time on ice for Filipino. So I'm projecting a career high power play points for Filipino at 16. I think that's pretty reasonable to me with Filipino, and that helps him obviously get to this projection here that I have. I really do like the player, and this is all based on him being the 2C here in Vancouver. If they still go out and get another 2C, obviously we're going to have to look at this projection and take it down a notch, right? But I do believe the Canucks have a top 6 that is a top 6. You know what I mean? It's not like, Seattle or something like that. Like, yeah, they have 6 players that you're like, you can make an argument for them being a top 6 team, right? Am I selling you on that, Nate?
I think that they are better. They have a better top 6 than a fair number of other teams. I don't know that it's a top half, top 6, like across the league. I don't think it's in the top 16 or whatever would be the top half of the league, but I think it's better than probably 10 other teams that we've talked about.
And that's hurtful. All right. I would put them at 17 here, Nate. Let's be nice. Okay. Right. But I did, again, saw a really nice interview with Philip Hedl talking about his off season. He got married. Lots of good vibes for him too. He's feeling healthy. It wasn't a concussion that he was dealing with at the end of the year. It was like a whiplash type injury. So that's good news, right? But still his head, I mean, that's not good. And they weren't risking it, right? They held him out. He probably, if they were kind of in it a little bit more, maybe they would have trotted him out there. But one thing Philip Hedl said is he's been working on his shot. That is the main thing he's been working on all off season, trying to get obviously more accurate, because this has been a wildly inefficient player so far in his time in the league, right? He's a great shooter, per minute shooter. He's doing well there. So yeah, if he can start converting, he's going to get more minutes if he's the 2C. His time on ice career high was 15:56. Like, I've projected him for just under 17. So I mean, I think everything's in line. This is one of those players that looks really good under the hood, has been looking good under the hood pretty much his whole career. And now he's walking into potentially more opportunity. And those are the type of things that I get excited about, right? Especially at the cost of acquisition for Filipino. You can get him with your last pick easy. It's not even a question, right? So I think it's a no-brainer for me. I'm going to probably have lots of Filipino on my team, just to see what happens, because I do think he will probably start the season as power play 1, and what he does with it is obviously up to him. But I think he's going to get a good opportunity here in the top 6, and I think he's probably the most dynamic player we have here. And that's a weird thing to say for a guy that played, however many games he did with the Canucks, but no one else on this team, say for like Quinn Hughes, can do what Philip Hedl does out there, like his style of play. So it's getting me kind of excited. Obviously, we have to see how it works here in Foot's new system.
All right, next up, Evander Kane. I have him for 23 goals, 19 assists, 42 points. You have him for 29 goals, 22 assists, 51 points. This is the player with the biggest difference. You're 8.5 points higher on Kane. So give me the bull case for what you see with Evander Kane here.
I mean, bull case is he sticks in the top 6 all year. I think he'll play with Petey, right? That's what I'm hoping for. It's a contract year as well for Vander Kane. I know we don't put too much into that, but it's another piece, right? It's another motivator for Vander Kane, and we know what this guy does, right? He shoots, he hits, he Juliannes occasionally, right? Um, but I feel like this is a perfect fit for a guy like Elias Pettersson, who, I felt didn't have a lot of protection, right? Didn't have a lot of space out there last season. And I feel like Evander Kane is the type of player that keeps other teams honest when he's out there on the ice. He's difficult to play against. And he also, in that way, creates space for other players. And Pettersson is a guy that needs a little bit of space, right, to do his thing. He's a very talented offensive player. And I think that Kane is also an amazing forechecker, right? So we're getting board battles. He's getting the puck out to Petey, and they can get to Biz. And I think that might be one of the reasons they brought Kane in here. No one's really said it besides Evander Kane. Evander Kane's like, I want the chance to play with Pettersson, right? Like, I feel like I could do something there. And I think he's going to get the opportunity to do so. There's also the possibility he gets on the power play, right? I've projected him for 11 power play points, right? Which would be, the second highest total of his entire career, right? 11 power play points. So maybe that's a little bold too, right? Because he could just be relegated to power play 2 the whole season, maybe put up another 5 to 8 points on the power play, and then we're lopping some off right off the top there. So that said, I think there's a really solid floor with the periffs he brings. I love the shots, I love the hits, and I think he's a motivated guy. He's playing at home. What's not to like, Nate?
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me on a basic level. I don't think he gets power play. I have him for 7 power play points, so that's a good chunk of our difference right there. I agree, like over 200 shots, well over 200 hits for me, so that part is there. 83 PIMs if
Yep.
you're
Yeah,
in
that's
the
what I got too.
PIMs league.
Weird.
So that's a good spot for your bangers, cats leagues, stuff like that. This is a player, though, who has definitely declined over the last number of years. The time on ice has declined year over year, every year for the last 4 years. I don't think he's the same guy that we've seen in the past, and obviously basically missed the entirety of the year last year and only played in the playoffs and not much at that. So it's a spot where it's a little bit of what do we still have here in Evander Kane, and I don't think anybody truly knows. But the overall trend is not super optimistic, I guess we can say. And as someone who shares a birth year with Evander Kane, I can say that I do not feel this year the way that I felt 3 or 4 years ago, and so maybe I'm just transferring some of how I feel onto Evander Kane. But it's possible that he may be not quite as explosive as he was
Well, I'll tell you
a
what,
few years ago.
I feel like Jaromir Jagr, we're probably the same age, all right? And he's still doing the thing, Nate. So anything is possible, all right?
All right.
One thing I will say about Kane before we move on is I just feel like he was on the Oilers, right? And there's not a lot of puck touches to go around. There's not a lot of offensive load to have on that team, right? Because of the superstars that they possess and the puck possession players they have. So this is another player that is walking into some potential opportunity. I remember when JT Miller came here to the Canucks, right? That's a guy that was buried on the third line in New York, and then he comes over here and it's blast off time. I'm definitely not saying Evander Kane's going to do that, but I feel like, he hasn't had to do much because there's not that much ice time and puck touches for him to even have in Edmonton. So here in Vancouver, I think there's more opportunity, but I mean, time will tell, right? What you're saying absolutely holds water. I could see that potentially, but I also think this guy's got a little gas left in the tank.
All right, last up, Connor Garland, 21 goals, 29 assists, 50 points for me, 19 goals and 32 assists, 51 points for you. Connor Garland, I think basically you're only interested if he's on the top power play. Otherwise, he just makes for a pretty solid streaming option, as do a number of the other players we mentioned already in this top 6 here. So I think he's pretty cut and dried for me, actually. Like, interested if he's on power play 1, streamer if he's not.
Yeah, I mean, we could pretty much leave it at that. I love Connor Garland. What he does in fantasy doesn't show at all what he does out on the ice in reality. This guy's a stud. I love Connor Garland, but yeah, fantasy, if he's power play 1, we're good to go. I mean, ceiling for him, like he had a great year last year with a big role and he only got a 50-point pace, right? So, I mean, ceiling might be 55. That's what we're looking at if everything goes well. So that's streamer territory for me.
All right, and you did a projection for one Nils Hoglander, who some people may have not remembered was still a player in the NHL. But
Oh no.
tell us about this 11 goal, 22 assist, rounding up to 34 points projection for Nils Hoglander.
I love Niels Hoglander. I mean, he's a guy that's going to need opportunity here. And, he tooted in Rick Tocchet's face when he was here. Wasn't listening. Like, he got in the doghouse a little bit, but this guy's a firecracker. He's great on the forecheck. He's an agitator, and he's got some offensive skills. So the only reason I projected him is because there is a chance that he gets moved into the top 6. Like, I could see Evander Kane moving down to the third line, right? We just talked on Kane, but like, if he is kind of, to your point, like kind of not performing to previous levels, like Niels Hoglander is good to go. This guy's amazing on board battles. He's like a more feisty, a little bit bigger Connor Garland, right? Without some of the polish. So I do like the player. I mean, he'll be a streamer throughout the year. I could see him playing with Petey at some point here in the year. And obviously, like, this team is very invested in Niels Hoglander. They need him to do something, right? This is a guy that got 24 goals just a year ago and then 8 last year. So which player is it, right? I think this is a guy that has some potential, but he's going to need more opportunity to do it.
All right. I almost forgot about Kiefer Sherwood, but luckily I did take a look at the screen and note that I have him for 19 goals, 20 assists, rounding down to 38 points. You have him for 18 goals, 22 assists, 40 points. And obviously, the big attraction with Sherwood is the 453 hits that I have him projected for, which laps the field and then some. I think that pretty much Kiefer Sherwood is the guy to own in Bangers Cats. Anything that has hits, he's going to do that for you and do it in spades. I will say I continually undervalue these guys in the following year's drafts. A year ago, we were talking about Jeremy Lauzon much the same way. Sherwood has taken it to another level this year, but it's just as likely to me that we're going to have another guy who's going to lead the league in hits this year that everybody's going to be in on. I'm interested in Sherwood, don't get me wrong. I do think he's going to throw the body a ton this year once again. Yeah, but I think probably in your Bangers Cats, somebody's going to just like go out and grab him in like the 7th round or something insane. And you're going to be like, I think I'll wait and find my guy on the wire.
Yep. I mean, Kiefer Sherwood to me is an interesting case, though. This isn't your average beefer. Like, yeah, he had 462 hits, and yeah, he profiles that way. But under the hood, Kiefer Sherwood is pretty damn good. Like, he is a player on the team that was actually able to rush the puck successfully last year. Like, generate a lot of shots off the rush, chances off the rush. His forechecking is elite. In zone shot assists, regular shot assists, zone entries. He does it all. Right. The problem with Kiefer Sherwood is he's a meathead, right? Like, he has no hands. So that's kind of part of the problem, but he still was able to get 19 goals. Right. I think this is kind of thing. Just thinking right now, there's like a good podcast topic here is like beefers that like, it's not like Matthew Olivier or something like that, or Jeremy Lauzon, right? Where it's, you're just getting him for the hits. Like, Kiefer Sherwood could do other things, right? Depending on where he is in the lineup. We saw that a little bit last year. Like, but a guy like Will Cooley is another one that, there's a little bit more meat on the bone with players like this. And Kiefer Sherwood, I just want to put it out there that he's not just a one-trick pony, which is the hits. He can actually do other things, and he's a valuable, really valuable third liner and can play up and down the lineup and could very well match his 40 points he did last year.
2-trick pony, B for Sherwood, 1 for the books for sure. Quinn Hughes, what do we say about Quinn Hughes? I have him for 18 goals, 72 assists, 90 points. You have him for 17 goals, 77 assists for 94 points. Going to be well worth a early 2nd round pick, I would say, in most formats. He's upped his shot totals. His power play points are going to be up there. I have him for 35. He does not hit, and he barely blocks for a defenseman, which is his major letdown, especially for your Bangers Cats leagues. But if you're getting this kind of production from the back end, then you can probably figure out those categories somewhere else.
Yep. I don't have too much to add. Just he's more important to his team than pretty much anybody else in the league. You know what I mean? Like, the Canucks basically just relied on Quinn Hughes to do everything last year. And I said this on another pod, but like for any chance that the Canucks had last year feels like it was orchestrated by Quinn Hughes, right? And that's not a great place to be for fantasy unless you own Quinn Hughes, right? And he stays healthy. But yeah, hopefully they don't kind of put that weight on him here this upcoming season. But I just love the guy. One thing that's really neat about Quinn Hughes, I will say, is like he's the type of player, kind of like Austin Matthews, that will play through injury. Doesn't matter. Like he's going to be out there. So I do have like the fact that he actually missed games this year, like he was really hurt. You know what I mean? This is a guy that if he can be out there, he's going to be out there. And that just kind of boosts him up in my book a little bit. I've seen him like on Yahoo right now. He's snuck into the first round in ADP. I'm not here for that. I don't know. That's a little like that. Again, that back half of the first round on Yahoo ADPs. It's a little strange. I like Quinn Hughes, kind of a early second, mid second round pick because again, like you said, there's no periffs whatsoever. But I do like his shot totals, his goals, and power play points. It's going to be elite stuff.
Lastly, Filip Hronek I have for 8 goals, 37 assists, 45 points. You have him for 8 goals, 34 assists, 42 points. Remains one of the better handcuffs in the league. Probably you're not drafting him anywhere, but if Quinn Hughes does go down to injury, then Hronek will immediately be the hottest guy on the waiver wire because he does have potential to produce at, let's say, a 55-point pace if given power play 1 throughout the season. Provides decent peripherals. The shots are not really there. 122 shots is what I have him for, but 117 hits, 97 blocks. So he'll give you a little bit of the peripheral stats along the way, and then he'll give you a decent enough point scoring potential that, especially if he does ever get a sniff of that power play 1, you'll want to be in on Filip Hronek.
Yep, not too much to add here. I like that kind of an elite handcuff there. You're picking him up as like a fifth defenseman maybe, and that's a good spot to be because I think even without any power play, like we're still looking at like a 40 to 45 point defenseman. This guy's got a bomb too. I remember there was a goal he scored. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but it was just an absolute laser, just a rocket off his stick. I think it was like 102 miles an hour, just something crazy. So he's got a bomb and he's got some really good chemistry with Quinn Hughes. So those all bode well for him. And I think he's a great defenseman.
All right, Blake, who are your top 3 targets?
All right. Well, Petey's my number 1 here. I just like the value 4th or 5th round Petey, center left wing eligibility there on Yahoo. I'm here for the point per game PD. I think that is absolutely in the wheelhouse. We didn't project him that way. We kind of did a safer projection, but I mean, point per game potential in the 4th or 5th round, I really like, plus the peripheral floor. Filip Chytil's my number 2. And that again, that's just if they go into the season with him as the 2C. I think that he can actually do something. I think he's going to surprise some people. So yeah, I've got him there, and then Evander Kane as my number 3. For all the reasons mentioned. Again, peripheral floor, bangers, he's going way earlier than that. But I do think that he's going to get a bigger role here with the Canucks, and I'd like to see what he does with that.
All right, for myself, I did have Jake DeBrusk here at number 1 until Blake totally poo-pooed that idea, but I'll stick by it. He's going 181 on Yahoo. Like I said, I'm taking him like 19th, 20th rounds in your deeper drafts. I'm not expecting him to light the world on fire, but I do think that there is some case where he actually is a player that you hang on to for the full year, and to get him in the last round would be nice. Filip Chytil, basically 1A, 1B here with DeBrusk for me. I think both of them have that same scenario. Chytil doesn't even have an ADP on Yahoo, so basically get him for free whenever you want. And then I do have Pettersson here. He has been going in some pretty good spots. The Yahoo ADP is 70, so definitely there's some value there that you could potentially get him at, and I'm okay with that. I don't think the ceiling is sky high, but I think the value is good enough there that he's like probably all the other guys that I have him projected around. Like I have him projected around guys like Kempe and Natchez and Aho and Hagel, and all these guys are going off the board before him in most drafts. So Pettersson represents some value to me this year on the board. All right, we got to get into Vegas. Key departures here: Alex Pietrangelo, Nicolas Roy, Victor Olofsson, Ilya Samsonov. Key additions: some guy named Mitch Marner, Riley Smith, Jeremy Lauzon, and Akira Schmid. Nothing really to note here, Ablick.
Damn, the rich get richer. Holy moly, this team is a wagon. They had such a great year last year, and then to add a guy like Mitch Marner. And I love the low-key addition of Riley Smith back into the fold here. This guy obviously loves playing here. He had success here. I think that's really smart. And then you get more difficult to play against with Jeremy Lauzon. Dear God, like this blue line was already heavy as hell, and now you got this guy out there just beefing into people. Yeah, it's going to be a rough ride there. I think they'll probably be tops in their division again here this upcoming season.
All right. I'm a little bit concerned about losing Pietrangelo. I think he's a bigger deal than a lot of people realize. This is going to elevate guys like McNabb and Whitecloud to even more minutes, and I'm not sure that that's always going to work out as well. I mean, Mitch Marner is obviously going to create some wins on his own for the Vegas Golden Knights, but I think people underrate these kind of more defensive guys who are not fantasy relevant, who are not talking about as much, guys like Pietrangelo, who hasn't been on the fantasy radar nearly as much in the last few years. I think that that's a bigger hit than most people are giving it credit for. That being said, for fantasy purposes, obviously it's a net positive when you add Mitch Marner to the field. Coaching status, Bruce Cassidy, still the coach, still elite. Hold him in pretty high regard, as does most of the league. He's just consistently gotten the best from the teams he's coached over the last number of years, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be this year. It does feel like a coach who might have a bit of a shelf life. I've heard some reports of him being pretty hard on some players sometimes, and so, there does maybe exist that chance that it's one of those years where the room doesn't enjoy it as much if there are some tough stretches. But you have to imagine, as you said, that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to be right there towards the top of the division, and everything should be hunky-dory. You got anything to add on Cassidy?
How does coaching like that still exist? I mean, in today's day and age, it's like the sugar gets the fly, not the, what's the other thing? The vinegar? Oh God, I just ruined it. Yeah, I think you're getting what my point here, right? Like
totally, everybody's got it.
Just be nice. All right. Damn it. And he's got so much more to work with here this year. So yeah, he's an elite coach. He's great for fantasy as well. We know what to expect.
Absolutely. Let's dig on the power play. It was elite last year.
Yep.
Now it adds Mitch Marner to the fold, which has created one of the most hotly contested issues of the entire offseason. Who comes off what was already an elite power play one? We assume that Marner will replace someone on this top power play because it's Mitch Marner, because they spent all this money to get him. I mean, we can run through the options. Jack Eichel not coming off. He's the franchise, basically, the 1C, the everything. But you have Dorofeyev, who really broke through as a shooter on this power play last year. Dorofeyev, I did it again. We literally talked about the pronunciation, and I said I'm going to forget that as soon as we get in
I
here.
tried not to react. Oh, my God. I'm sorry about this.
Yeah, Blake's just laughing at me in the background. It's fine. I've been laughed at before, and I will be again, no doubt. Dorofeyev, the shooter. You have Shea Theodore, the quarterback. Obviously, Marner kind of performed that role for Toronto towards the back end of last year and did quite well at it. You have Mark Stone, but he's the captain and was actually basically, after Eichel, their most effective power play player, at least in terms of point share last year. And then Hurdle, who scored the most power play goals on the team last year. So which one of these elite players on this elite power play are you taking off, Blake?
Yeah, that's a really interesting problem, right? Like, yeah, when you bring in a superstar, the caliber of Mitch Marner, yeah, someone's going to have to go off. And you just had an amazing power play last year. So for me, it's going to be between Dorofeyev and Mark Stone, right? But then at that point, you have to look at what are the positions going to be? Like Mark Stone plays, net front, right? Hurdle plays the bumper. So I don't think it's going to be Hurdle because you get that, secondary face-offs there. I think Marner's going to play the right flank. He did that in Toronto, right? That's where he is. And then you got Eichel on the left flank. I think it's going to be Dorofeyev if I had to guess because of his positioning, right? Which really stinks. And I know Dorofeyev's he's a hot sleeper. People are still really into him, as they should be, but they might still be treating him like he's a lock on power play one. And I just don't think he is. Like, this is a guy that went nuts on the power play last year. And yeah, he could very well play power play 2 for the entire year. So I don't know. I think, like you said, too, Stone's the captain. And I just think where he's playing net front, like, what are they going to do? Move Dorofeyev over to net front, or move Mitch Marner to net front, or Hurdle to net front and Marner to the bumper? Like, I don't know. That's too much change when they could just take Dorofeyev off and you just, kind of rework that power play. One thing I will say is I really truly believe that with the addition of Marner here, Eichel is going to eat power play goals. I feel like that's going to be a major benefit to him, where he only had 5 power play goals last year. He was the facilitator. He was the one driving all the offense by setting up the chances. And Dorofeyev was like a main benefactor of that. Well, if you take Dorofeyev off and now Marner is going to be the guy driving play and Eichel's going to be the one at the end of passes. And I think we're going to see at least double his power play goals that he had last year. And I don't even think that's a hot take. That's just that's a prediction of mine that I've kind of been, thinking about the last little bit here. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Nate?
Yeah, I'm not really fully there. Mitch Marner has quite honestly never really been the driver of the power play in Toronto. It's Nylander has had a bigger power play role in years past. This past year was actually Matthews had the highest IPP, and the power play kind of ran through him and his distribution, especially as Marner went up to the top in the quarterback role. It sounds like you're pretty out on the idea of Shea Theodore coming off this top power play, which is interesting to me because I think that's skill set for skill set, kind of the most obvious replacement here is to take Theodore off and to put Marner in that spot where he was really good last year. That was when the Leafs power play was really clicking, was when Marner was in that spot. And that's when Marner was actually the most efficient as a power play producer that he's ever been, basically, in a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform, was when he was in that role. And so I mean, we're all guessing at this point, and we'll get some idea of it very shortly. So it's just for drafts at this point. Like, what are you doing if you have a draft tomorrow? If you're doing like best balls at this point, like who are you taking where? Dorofeyev makes a lot of sense as just the guy with the least amount of seniority, right? But he also has the most unique skill set of all of these guys, in my opinion, as like the flank shooter, the guy that everybody wants to take those shots because he has an absolute cannon. And so that part makes him really hard to take off just theoretically. But again, I think in a lot of coaches, especially an old school guy like Bruce Cassidy, it probably is just a seniority thing. And so I do think there's a pretty strong chance that it is Dorofeyev. But for me, it's between Dorofeyev and Theodore. I don't see Mark Stone coming off the power play personally after the season that he just had, producing on that power play and being a really big part of it. That's kind of where I'm at. I do think that they may play with this too if it doesn't work as well, because it was elite and they're not going to stand for it not working. I do think Mitch Marner gets in there right away and he bumps somebody out. Probably on day one, it's Dorofeyev, but if it doesn't work, and it might not, like Marner is not really a classic flank on the power play player. Like, he's not like a pass to the middle kind of guy. He's a guy who wants the puck on his stick and try to create. But when teams just sag the box against a guy like that, it actually kind of becomes difficult for him because he's not like an explosive skater. He's more of like a dance and agility skater. Anyway, I've just seen a lot of times where Marner's trying to create something, trying to open a lane, and teams just sag the box and he's not really able to do it. And he ends up just passing around the perimeter again. I'm not convinced that this is just immediately better because Mitch Marner is Mitch Marner. I think this lends a little bit more. I think we should be taking a closer look, and I think the Vegas Golden Knights will be taking a close look early on and often as to how this power play is going because it was so good last year. There's a lot of added pressure to make sure it's just as good this year. So definitely something to monitor there. In terms of the actual minutes, the way that I have it, I have Dorofeyev projected at 2.5 minutes. I have Shea Theodore projected at 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So I have Theodore as the most likely, I guess, to get bounced. But I also have both Mark Stone and Thomas Hertl under 3 minutes as well. So I am kind of spreading it out across just to kind of mitigate the risk because I do see scenarios for all of them. All right, let's get into the projections here. Jack Eichel off the top, 31 goals, 65 assists, 96 points for me, 40 goals, 55 assists, rounding down to 94 points for you. Obviously, you're leaning into Jack Eichel being more of a shooter this year and doing something that he's never really done in terms of the goal scoring production.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look too at his injuries that he's had throughout his, like, he's never played a full season, right? So there's a reason why he hasn't got to 40 goals. And I think it's injury related, right? But he's paced for 40 goals multiple times. So yeah, I think that, it's going to be interesting to see who he plays with at even strength as well.
Yeah.
Because there's putting Marner on his line, I think is a great idea, but it also makes sense for Marner to be with Thomas Hertl. So it's an embarrassment of riches. They obviously did well last year, but digging in on Eichel's line in particular, it was Eichel, Barbashev, and Mark Stone. Like, they didn't have a positive Corsi for percentage. They were at like 49%, right? Which is really interesting. And then digging in on some of the micro stats on Jack Eichel, like, he was really like, there was 0 high danger passes from Jack Eichel or Mark Stone. So it's weird to me. I feel like they weren't generating a ton of good looks at 5-on-5. And I think that it's because it's kind of like the Matthews situation we talked about. Like, if Matthews is now the facilitator and Matthew Nye is the guy at the end of passes, like, it just changes the look of that offense. And I think that's what happened last year, at least at even strength with Jack Eichel. He was being the facilitator. He was moving the puck to the other guys instead of shooting the puck, right? Which is what he's really elite at. So yeah, all that to say, I just think certainly on the power play, like I said, 5 power play goals for Jack Eichel last year. No, I think that's going to at least double. I think he's going to get 10 goals there. So there's 5 goals right off the bat. And I think that, he will see some time with Mitch Marner, and I'm baking in that they're going to have a little bit of chemistry. I really like Mitch Marner as a player, as a facilitator, as a defensive presence. Like, him being out there on a line, let's say with Jack Eichel, that means less defensive work that Jack Eichel has to do, right? Because Mitch Marner is back supporting the defense, connecting the play, right? Eichel can, head out of the zone and get some breakaways, or at least like threaten, right? So I just think that we're going to see a more goal heavy season from Jack Eichel there.
Yeah. For myself, I think that Eichel and Marner have similar skill sets in that they both want the puck on their stick all the time, and that might be a reason to keep them apart at even strength. You can definitely make the case that you can have both things. Like, you can have 2 guys who want the puck, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think that they may try a few different versions of this and figure out what works best. And it may not be the one that we think is the most obvious right off the top, that just play your best players all together all the time and it just works. That may not be the way it goes. I mean, I could see a lot of different ways that they could orient this that would be really exciting for fantasy. You could see Eichel, Marner, and Dorofeyev on the left side, and that could be a spot where even if Dorofeyev's not on the power play one, that he's actually just elite at 5v5 and scores like 30 goals at 5v5. That's definitely a possibility for me. Barbashev has been a long time left wing line mate of Eichel and has actually really played well off him. I think personally, a limited player, but like a role player who plays quite well in that role. And then Hertl and Dorofeyev did actually have really good chemistry last year for a good chunk of the year, both on the power play and at even strength. And so they may be kind of loath to break up that duo, is the other part of it. So definitely a lot of ways this could go. For Eichel specifically, I don't really think he is an elite shooter. He's a volume shooter for sure, but he only has one season where he's been over 12.1% shooting. He throws a lot of pucks. Last year, he threw a lot less pucks and he was setting people up, and that worked way better for him points wise, scoring wise, impact on the game wise than anything he's ever done before. And so I don't really see a scenario where all of a sudden, just because Mitch Marner arrives, that he's suddenly going to change up his play style from what worked for him last year, what worked better for him last year than anything else he's ever tried in his career previously. And if he's not going to just increase his shot volume by a huge amount, then I don't think he's just going to magically become an extra 3 to 4% shooter just by virtue of Mitch Marner being there. That's not really how shooting percentages work. So for myself, I just don't see a huge jump for it for Eichel. Definitely could be wrong. I'm not saying that this is a locked and loaded thing for me. It's just not the way I've chosen to project it here based on what I'm thinking about the way that might go for Eichel this year. But let's dig in on the other guys here. Let's talk about Barbashev. 25 goals, 29 assists, 54 points for me. 22 goals, 31 assists, 53 points for you. As you mentioned, kind of a role player. I think he does see a fair amount of Eichel exposure, but this is a player that basically is streamer level, maybe a touch above when he is playing with Eichel, but basically has now no chance for power play one at any point throughout the season. And so he really is just a streamer, or maybe when he's hot, you can hang on to him for a few weeks.
Yep. Crazy efficiency for this guy as well. Like just shot 20.7% last year. I mean, Vegas was cooking, right? But this guy was, he was the benefactor of some great facilitation by guys like Jack Eichel and Mark Stone, right? So yeah, I think again, perfect streamer. He beefs out of his mind. This is a guy that his periffs were down last year. Like he only had 104 hits last year. The year previous, he had 180. The year before that, he had 182. So I think there's reasonable, or it's reasonable to believe that he's going to bounce back in the hit column. Blocks were down again last year as well, probably due to just playing more of an offensive role on the team. But I like the player. He's a great streamer for Vegas. And I don't think people are necessarily drafting him, certainly not in a 12-team league. So I think, you can pick him up as your streamer, and he'll probably have pockets of value throughout the year.
All right, Mark Stone, I have for 22 goals, 53 assists, rounding up to 76 points. You have him for 24 goals, 46 assists, and rounding down to 69 points, which is pretty nice. Mm-hmm. I think this is a player that I may look at this projection again and just see if I want to actually take it down, because I do think there is some risk that he is off the top power play. He might be the guy who's like, I'm the captain, I'm going to take myself off this because we got Mitch Marner. Like we've seen that in the past too. Guys like Blake Wheeler have done similar things in the past, like taking an intentional step back because they believe it's what's best for the team in the long run. So that could be a scenario for Mark Stone. And also, as I've dug in on Mark Stone since this projection, I've been less and less impressed by what he was doing. I think he was Canada's worst player at the Four Nations, and it wasn't particularly close. And that maybe is just that viewing has just left a sour taste in my mouth a little bit as well. So all those things coming together, plus just the risk. It's just not a guy I want to be high on in my projections this year. And also, it's mostly downside from this number that I have regardless. Like, I'm not drafting Mark Stone as if 76 points is assured, right? I'm not drafting him anywhere around where his projection would tell you to draft him. If you're just going to blindly use my projections as your rankings, that's not how I would rank him in my drafts. So I may look at this one, just touch him down a little bit, but also I'm just not going to draft him at this projection. If other people in the room are just totally fading him and thinking like there's no chance that he's on power play one if he falls to the very late rounds, then absolutely I'll once again take a ride there, see what happens. If he's on power play one, if he's playing with Eichel at even strength again, then you're set to go. You just found, congratulations, a 70-point player in the last round of your draft, and you're good to go. That happened last year, at least while he was healthy. So that's definitely possible again this year, but it's not a player that I'm targeting by any stretch.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. It's never a player I'm excited about, just due to, like, we talk about injury narrative here, but this is a guy that I actually do fade a little bit due to his injury narrative. Like he's got some pretty significant injuries. I swear last year I saw some tweet that was like, Mark Stone's going to be in and out of the lineup for the rest of his career. I saw something like that. I could never find it again. It was probably some burner account. I don't know. But I thought about that a lot going into drafts. I'm like, no, I'm staying away from Mark Stone. And he dropped to me at like after pick 200 in one of the leagues I was in. I was like, I have to take Mark Stone, and he had a great year. So I'm not out on Mark Stone the way I was last year, but not it. I think his ADP on Yahoo, just looking out, 144. I'm not even interested there, right? Like, I think if he falls into like the 160, 170, like, it's a smash, because you're looking at probably a 60-point player minimum. And that has a lot of value. I mean, but again, digging in on the microstats with him, there's not a lot of facilitation there, right? Like, or certainly like high danger stuff. So expected goals when Mark Stone's on the ice is not really happening, right? Shots, non-existent. Rush shots, even worse, right? He doesn't do that. So he's very reliant on kind of getting someone else getting into the zone and him setting up and then them moving the puck around, right? So, I'm not big on the guy, but and I don't think he's going to be able to reach the 83-point pace he did last year. That was off big power play numbers as well, which we talked about. He might not even be on the power play. So there you go. Also, definitely go check out Mark Stone's new headshot here. Looks like he just passed a really stinky fart and he's just smelling it, but he's in a public place. So he has to pretend it wasn't him, but like the look on his face is clearly like, I need to get out of here immediately. Like, I got to go to the bathroom. Like, something's happening here. Anyways, let's move on to the next player, Nate. I'm sorry about this.
All right, let's move on. Thomas Hertl, 34 goals, 29 assists, 63 points for me. 35 goals, 30 assists, rounding down to 64 points for you. Thomas Hertl did find a home on that power play. I think it's going to be hard for them to take him off if they want to recapture some of that magic that they had last year. Super efficient with how he was shooting, especially on that power play. Also hits, underrated hitter, 115 hits. I have him for him this year, 195 shots. If he does get Marner on his line at even strength and he does get Marner on the power play with him, then, I mean, we could be looking at a ceiling scenario of up to 70 points, I think, for Hurdle. He's just a pretty nice guy to take a stab on late, and there might be even upside from this number.
Yeah, this is a player that I don't mind the efficiency, right? A lot of that came on the power play, but his role is clearly defined there on the power play. Like you said, they're not moving him off. And regardless if you get Marner out there, I think that's got to be a net positive. That's my take. And maybe it is a basic take, but you get a guy like Mitch Marner, 100-point player on your power play. As long as the coaching is good and they get people in the right positions, like everybody should be getting a little bit better of a chance, right? That's sort of my quick take there. So I still like Hurdle's potential on the power play. Like you said, the Profs are good. Yeah, easy pick here. His ADP is 118. That's a little spicy for me on Yahoo, but I don't know if you take him there. It's not a whiff at all, right? Like we're looking at a top six power play one player with 70-point upside. Like it's pretty damn nice, and he's just landed in a good spot here. And I think being on San Jose, people didn't realize how good this guy actually was until he actually started playing with a good team. And now, yeah, the points aren't going off the rails or anything like that, but he's certainly more noticeable out there on the ice.
Right, Pavel Dorofeyev, I have for 35 goals, 19 assists, 54 points, 32 goals, 21 assists, 53 points for you. A lot of Dorofeyev's production is contingent on that power play, so what you think of that situation, what info we learn, will definitely have a huge impact on Dorofeyev and where he will go in drafts. And that's all to say, like, even if he shows up on the very first camp report on power play 1, like 2 weeks later he could be off. Like,
yep.
It's going to change his ADP a whole lot, that very first report, and it might still be false when all is said and done. That being said, Dorofeyev is a monster shot producer and scoring chance producer. Like, literally shows up in like the Matthews kind of tier of scoring chance producers. I'm for 256 shots, and that's with 17 minutes average time on ice this year. I think that Dorofeyev has 40 plus goal upside for sure. You could paint me a story in which this year Pavel Dorofeyev pops off for 50 goals, and it wouldn't be the most insane thing. He is that level of a rate stat monster. And if he had a really efficient year playing alongside Mitch Marner, would anybody really be shocked? I don't think so. So Dorofeyev has sky-high potential as a goal scorer. We've talked about it. The playmaking piece is definitely not there for Dorofeyev at this stage. He is still young. Like, it's still a developing player. He took a big leap last year, and who's to say that a player who's kind of figured out the shooting part of it might not add something new this year? I don't think he's a net negative in the kind of playmaking and helping facilitate offense in other ways, but he is definitely a shooter first and foremost. So Dorofeyev, just a guy with really exciting potential. It's really just about, will he get that opportunity this year for me?
I think that'd be really cool if he did. I mean, you bring in a guy like Marner, and then Dorofeyev is the one that's getting prioritized. That would be incredible, right? Because like you said, this guy's a per minute beast. Great shot production, great chance production. And he's got a wicked shot. There's no question there. I think that even if he does get bounced off power play 1, I think that the net positive from having Marner on his second line, or just Marner in that top 6, like, Dorofeyev's still going to be in a great position at even strength. I think he has a little bit more to give there. And I think it's going to kind of buffer his that potential regression from the power play. So I think that's why I projected him kind of similar to I got him for 53 points. He got 52 points last year, right? So yeah. I think maybe the power play numbers go down a little bit and the even strength numbers go up a touch. But yeah, the bull case is, I think, a 70-point player, right? Like, if he's able to hold power play 1, I could see him getting 40 and 30. I think that's something that's in the wheelhouse for this player, but he's going to obviously have to take a step here, and the team's going to have to commit to, utilizing him in prioritizing him in that way, right? So we'll see what happens. It's a really interesting thing. This has been a great conversation about Vegas, because I feel like I'm still forming my opinions and talking to you about this stuff is like, Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Like, and it's kind of, there's just so many different ways this can go because this team's already so good, and now there's a lot of changes coming into the team. So how's it going to affect them? And it's kind of a neat story. But this is a great player. I hope that he does get prioritized because this is a guy at his ADP could absolutely be like a league-winning sleeper for you.
Quick gut check. Would you take Vegas's top 6 over the Vancouver top 6 at the moment, Blake?
You know damn well I would. I have to. Come on. Yeah, I mean, this is what I've learned with fantasy. I can't be a homer, right? I mean,
well,
no. I mean, I am a homer. I'm not going to cheer for their top 6 more than cheer for the Canucks, but for fantasy, hell yeah, my God. I mean, imagine if the Canucks had Dorofeyev, we'd be over the moon. It'd be like, first line winger, no problem. Let's get him the 20-minute treatment. And we're talking about Dorofeyev, all right?
yeah.
So yeah, we got Jake DeBrusk over here. It's not a great situation. That's fine.
All right, we haven't gotten to Mitch Marner yet. I suppose we have to. 27 goals, 71 assists, 98 points for me. 26 goals, 67 assists, 93 points for you. So actually, you're down on Mitch Marner relative to me, which is interesting. I mean, what's there to say? It's a really talented player in a really talented top 6. He's going to get every opportunity as an elite level player, superstar level player on a super team, probably a top 10, if not top 5 team in the league this upcoming season. So I don't have too much to say about Mitch Marner. I think he's pretty safe. He is kind of the brand of player who doesn't play as well for fantasy as most people think. They think, yeah, 9,500 points, Mitch Marner. He's a guy you have to take with an early second-round pick, but oftentimes there are guys who get less points but score more goals, take more shots that actually end up outperforming him by the end of the year in a lot of fantasy point systems. So just a guy that usually goes off the board a little bit before I'm willing to take him. Do you think there's upside here for Marner? Like, do you think like he could have the best season of his career where he actually gets like 105, 110 in Vegas? Do you think that's possible?
Anything's possible, right? That's only 10 points or 8 points more than his career high, right? Which was last year. So of course it's possible. He's playing with really good players, but are they better than the players he played with in Toronto? I don't think so. I mean, Matthews is better than Eichel. There's no question. In real life, in fantasy, he's better. He's much better. But I mean, that said too, I like a good narrative and all the stuff that, Marner and the Leafs are dealing with in terms of media and the pressure on the team and the threats to Marner and all this crap, right? Like that affects you to some degree. I mean, if anyone's played sports and you understand, like you feel good, you play good, right? So not saying that Marner is going to be just feeling perfect since he comes over here to Vegas, but I think he's going to feel a hell of a lot better than he did in Toronto. And that could equal some good vibes. And obviously he's going to have to build chemistry with his new line mates. And I think that's where I am a little bit more down on Mitch Marner because this is a guy that has a gravity of his own. He has a play style that's worked for him. He's played for the same team for his entire career. Now he's going to another team with a completely different play style, different players. You have to learn their tendencies, and that takes time, right? Training camp isn't going to cut it. You know what I mean? It's going to be a throughout the season kind of thing. And I think we'll see kind of a muted season for Mitch Marner. But I do think that he probably will get his career high in his career with the Vegas Golden Knights. I could see him beating 102 points at some point here with Vegas.
Yeah, don't get me started on the self-inflicted Mitch Marner media tour.
Josh was not into it either. I felt empathy for the man. I was like, oh, dang, that stinks. I said it to Josh. He's like, I hate this. This is terrible. What are they're having? And then you're too. So I must be out of the loop on this.
Oh, it's just Leaf fan Twitter, I guess. But yeah, there's definitely no love lost after what's gone on this off season, and I think he expects to be roundly booed when he returns to Toronto this upcoming season. Let's talk about Karlsson. William Karlsson, that is. 17 goals, 29 assists, 46 points for me. 18 goals, 27 assists, 45 points for you. Center only. It's just a guy, like, you'll stream him potentially when they have a good situation. But realistically, I don't think anybody's excited about drafting William Karlsson in the year of our Lord 2025.
Certainly not drafting. I mean, he's not going to get power play time, but valuable player for the team, could play, last minutes in games. I think he's going to be a good streamer for this team. But yeah, who are you taking, Karlsson or Barbashev for your streamer there?
Yeah, Barbashev for sure, especially if he's got any exposure to Eichel at even strength. You did a projection for Riley Smith, who I thought might be out of the league, but you got him for 14 goals, 25 assists, 39 points. You think there's something here with Vegas?
You bet your sweet bippy I do, buddy. This guy had his best years in Vegas. He's going to run it back. No, he's not going to run it back, but he's a valuable player to me. So he's a good third liner. And I think this is obviously an offensive team. Everybody's going to eat to some degree, I think. And he'll probably be have a really nice third line role here. And he's got some bits and pieces, right? He's really good at scoring chance contribution there. And I like William Karlsson as well. I do as a third line, like, that's pretty damn nice. Like their top six is great. Their third line is great too. And they got Keegan Colasar on the fourth line. One of my faves. All right. You put Keegan Colasar on the first line. We're looking at a point per game season there. Book it. That's my hot take.
All right, let's get on to the defense. Shea Theodore, I have for 9 goals, 52 assists, rounding down to 61 points. For 11 goals, 56 assists, 67 points. So a pretty solid difference here. I think this is just power play stuff where I have him a little bit lower at 2 minutes, 15 seconds projected power play time. That works out to 16.6 power play points for me.
Yeah, I mean, for Theodore, for me, I gave him 23 power play points. So he's getting the full complement.
That makes sense. I mean, Shea Theodore, don't get me wrong, I love the talent of the player. This is a player who will not hit anybody, even if his life depends on it. I am for 7.7 hits this year, 109 blocks, so he's maybe a touch above average in the blocks department, but massive IPP at even strength. I have him for 56% IPP at even strength, 60% on the power play. If he's on that power play one, and it's blast off time again for Shea Theodore on a per game basis, he's going to be borderline elite. 70 points as an average pace would not be out of the question for me if he got that role. I'm just a little bit worried about it given how successful Marner was in that exact role for the Leafs last year. Braden McNabb, 4 goals, 16 assists, 20 points for me. You have him for 4 goals, 13 assists, 17 points. Jack Whitecloud, I did as well. 5 goals, 13 assists, 18 points. Lauzon, 5 goals, 8 assists, rounding down to 12 points. Basically, these 3 guys you're just interested in for the peripheral stats. I have McNabb for 139 hits, 170 blocks. I have Whitecloud for 146 hits, 137 blocks. I have Lauzon for 362 hits, 125 blocks. Bang. If you need bangers, Blake, this is a place to come to.
That's right. Bangers and mash. You head on over to Vegas. They got you covered. All right. I don't know. That sounded better in my brain. All right, let's move on.
All right, let's talk about Hanifin then. I'm for 10 goals, 30 assists, 40 points. I'm for 10 goals, 28 assists, 36 points, rounding down. Hanifin is operates in that perfectly cromulent area of NHL defensemen for fantasy purposes. We could compare him directly, actually, to Philip Hronek, who we just talked about on Vancouver. I would put Hronek ahead of Hanifin personally. I don't think Hanifin has the offensive upside, doesn't have the peripheral stats that Hronek has. I would take Hronek 10 times out of 10 over Hanifin personally, whereas I think a lot of other people are elevating Hanifin, and I'm not really sure why. He's never really been that guy in any extended duration of time. So it feels to me like the fantasy community has some perception of who Noah Hanifin is, and I'm not sure what it's based on. I don't think he's anything more than, a point every other game kind of defenseman.
Yeah, he's a guy that if he got some opportunity consistently, I think could hit a little bit. I mean, at least be on our fantasy radars, right? But for now, I mean, it's you're looking at double-digit goals. I mean, that's nice, right, from the back end. Sure. So he's, again, a great streamer, but we're not drafting Noah Hanifin. I remember last year when they just pissed us off, like, oh, Noah Hanifin's the guy, Shea Theodore's the guy, and we're like, who, what, and Hanifin's getting drafted, and then it's Shea Theodore out there, like, oh god. So I'm not going to do that again. I don't mind Hanifin as a streamer, just for the double-digit goals from the back end and the potential, the 45 to 50 point potential if he does get power play one.
Yeah, if he did get power play one ever, then for sure we'd be talking about something different. But I think that route is very hard to come by this year.
Now. Yeah.
Even if, say Shea Theodore starts there, then if he gets injured, I'm pretty sure they would go the Marner route at that point and elevate another forward over Hanifin. So yeah, I just think it's gotten exponentially harder this offseason for Hanifin to get a power play one role at any time. All right, Blake. Top 3 targets. Give it to me.
Give it to me, Neil. Oh, Neil, please. I need it now. Okay. That's all right. My number one, Nate's favorite player on the Vegas Golden Knights, Shea Theodore. Nice. I'm taking him because I like the value, and I do think that he's going to take power play 1, although that's a great conversation, and that's something I'm going to think about a lot more. The 5-forward power play, I don't think I've seen a team ever do it all year, right? So that would be neat. I mean, not that a team won't, but I just think that Shea Theodore is going to spend time on that power play. The power play is awesome, and the value is good in drafts. Mark Stone, number 2, just for the value, right? Like he's dropping, especially in sharp leagues. People are like, no, I don't want Mark Stone. I find in like Yahoo standard leagues, people are like, I'll take him at 144. But in sharp leagues, it's like after 200, he's just sitting there. Yeah. Like, okay, I kind of have to. And then Ivan Barbashev, come on, Bobby, let's go party. Get on my fantasy team. He'll be a good streamer for us. Good beefs. Plays with Jack Eichel. What do you want?
Yep. For myself, I'm going to have Dorofeyev up at number 1. It's just the one player here who has absolute blast-off potential. We've talked about kind of the players who could actually win you your league. Zach Werenski was that guy for a lot of A&G listeners last year. Dorofeyev could be that guy this year. In sharper drafts, you are going to really have to pay up for Dorofeyev, which is going to be a problem this year because a lot of people are recognizing that potential. But if you are on Yahoo, he's going at pick 125, first pick of the 11th round, I think that would make him. No, not quite. Middle of the 11th round. Doing the math, carrying the one we got there. Dorofeyev is just a guy that I have a lot of time for with the ceiling scenario, and the floor scenario is still probably in the 30-goal range for me, which probably means that he can play for your team all year long, even if he doesn't hit the way that we hope he can. And so that makes him a slam dunk if you are drafting against some softer competition. I'm Barbashev, Mark Stone. Honestly, I just don't really like the value that much on any of the other guys. And so Barbashev and Stone kind of by default here for me. I guess Hurdle I could throw in this conversation too as a guy that I feel relatively confident about this year. On Yahoo, he's going 118, which is pretty late and not bad, center left wing eligible. So maybe I'd throw Hurdle in this mix, but it does feel like none of these guys are really giving me the kind of value that I'm really excited about. All right, we've reached the midway point. That means we got to talk about the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Draft Guide. These things have been selling like hotcakes, Blake, but there is still definitely time. If you need a draft guide in your life before your draft, this is a place to get it. Patreon.com/Apples Ginos, or follow any link. It's the pinned link on Twitter. Wherever you want to go, you will find a way to get this in your hands. 375 player projections, 32 NHL team previews, all the top sleepers identified. I wrote a huge article in there that many are calling a great article, not just myself. It's peer-reviewed, and we've published it. All right.
His mom put it on the fridge as well, so it's really nice.
Yes. Yes. My mom thinks I'm good at fantasy hockey. I should make a bumper sticker. That's actually a great line. My mom thinks I'm good at fantasy.
With the little apple there. That's okay. We got something cooking here.
Yeah, we got some merch ideas coming out of this episode for sure. Applesandginos.com/APL. I'm not convinced. We have 8 people on the waiting list currently to form another league. We are running a little bit tight on time to get the last league started. If we got 4 more in the next couple of days, we would probably start the final league for the APL. So if you are listening to this right now and you're like, man, I do actually think I want to get in on that, as so many others, I forget what we're at now, but well over 200 members in the APL this year already. It's going to be awesome. The drafts have been going on. Everybody's been loving it and talking about where they got this guy, and oh, you got that guy in the 6th round, I got him in the 7th round. There's been tons of that in the chat, so it's been really fun to walk through with everybody. If you are still interested, go to applesandginos.com/APL, fill out the intake form, and we'll be in touch either way. Either you will remain on the waiting list, or we might be able to squeeze you into one last league this year. And lastly, I am doing a bunch of stuff on Drafters. They have released their $10 NHL Best Ball Championship. First place gets $10,000. That's US dollars. That's something worth chasing in my mind. If you are a first-time player, use promo code GINOS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. So get a free $100 there. Might be worth your while if you want to come draft on that platform. For the Apples and above tier patrons, I have released my Drafters Best Ball tool, which includes a bunch of stuff around games played optimization, how to basically make your team the best it possibly can be to give yourself the best shot at taking home that $10,000 prize. It is super fun, super easy way to scratch that drafting itch before your league actually hits. All right, Blake, you ready to get into the Capitals?
Let's do it.
All right. Key departures, not really key at all. Andrew Mangiapane, Taylor Radish, not really much to say there. Key additions, Anthony Beauvillier, strike your fancy. Ryan Leonard is actually a player of interest here. Obviously had some fans coming out of the college game, was a college game wrecking ball for much of his career there. And so he did have a lot of hype around him when he joined the Capitals. I don't know if he's got the sky high offensive upside, but it does add another player as a potential top 6 guy down the line for the Capitals into the mix here. Let's add Spencer Carberry to the list of things that, I mean, it felt like 2 different coaches that we got. Yeah. Spencer Carberry first year versus second year. It really felt like he turned this team into something completely new in year 2 as the head coach. They're one of the league's most efficient teams in basically every metric. And the question I have for you, Blake, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to give us a single answer that just totally clarifies this for all time, but is the efficiency of the Capitals last year a sign of a system that's working very well that Carberry's implemented, or is it just a bit of a one-season spike?
Yes. I got 3 initials for you. All right, this is really going to clear this up for you, Nate.
Okay.
PLD. Oh, buddy. Yeah, that's how you get efficient. That's terrible. I'm sorry about this, Nate. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on, but yes, like sometimes it just takes a little while for things to start cooking. And I do think the addition of that second line, not just PLD, but Tom Wilson, PLD, and Connor McMichael as a second line, I think that giving them a legit secondary scoring threat and a defensive presence as well really helped this team. And then you add Jacob Chychrun in there, who's just a beast on offense, and you had great years from their goaltending. Like it's a game of inches, right? It's on a razor's edge, and it can fall either way. And we've seen the tale of 2 seasons here, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens this upcoming year.
All right, let's dig in on the power play here. You got 4 spots pretty locked down in my mind. Ovechkin, Strome, Carlson, and Wilson. These guys were pretty much on there the entire time last year when healthy. Chychrun got a lot of run. They did. Carlson was out for a good chunk of time. Chychrun got his first bit of time because of that on the top power play. Performed very well when he was up there. And then when Carlson came back, they did try a fair bit of 2 defenseman looks on that top power play. That's what they ran in the playoffs as well. PLD was the other player who got significant time on the top power play unit throughout the year last year. If you had to handcuff it today, what are you going with, Blake?
Ooh, I think right off the bat, I'd like to see them go with Chychrun on the power play and Carlson. So the 2 defensemen and then the 3 forwards, I think makes some sense. It looked good out there. And I mean, maybe am I just wish casting again too? Like I want Chychrun on the top power play. I just don't see how, Carlson, Ovechkin, and Wilson are off there, and Strome, right? So yeah, give me Chychrun as the guy, and PLD can roll on power play 2, kind of what he did last year. That worked fine, right? And then when they want to switch things up, yeah, you take Chychrun off, you put PLD up, and I think they'll sort of go back and forth with the edge going to Chychrun.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all that. Like I have John Carlson for 16.8 power play points and Chychrun for 16.5. So I'm viewing that fairly similarly. I have Carlson with a bit more actual time on ice on the power play because I do think he's a bit more entrenched there. He's the guy who knows how to tee it up exactly the way Alex Ovechkin likes it over on that side. So I think he kind of gets that position on the power play just by that virtue alone.
Yep.
But either way, that is kind of exciting for Chychrun to have him with a bit more of a projected power play role at this time, which was not something that was assured last year at all, and something that we were actually more leaning against at the start of the year last year. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on with Chychrun, as he is a pretty big time goal scorer from the back end. Let's dig in on the overall projections, starting with Dylan Strome. Had a huge year last year. This year we've got him for, well, I've got him for 27 goals, 46 assists, 73 points rather, 26 goals, 47 assists, and 73 points for you. We see this player very similarly, taking a bit of a step back. We do think that some of that was some unbelievable efficiency from Ovechkin on the conversion side of things that will probably regress as well. We'll get into that. But what do you see from Dylan Strome this year? Do you think he's got ceiling to get back to the point per game range?
I really feel like that was his ceiling. So yeah, that said, I mean, that ceiling's not crazy high, right? He did have to shoot 19.6% to get there. So yeah, maybe the goals come down a little bit, but I could see the assists going up to sort of buffer that as well. So that, I think there's a chance for him to do that. This is a guy that's kind of fully realized his potential now on this team. He has a very consistent role, and we'll talk about Ovechkin here soon, but yeah, that just works. Like Strome and Ovechkin works for all of Ovechkin's deficiencies. Strome picks up the slack. And now you got this Russian machine Protas out there, who I'm a big fan of. I think really is kind of the X factor on that line that really makes it go. So I just feel like this has a really safe floor for Dylan Strome. He's going to get all the opportunity. He's a great facilitator. It's kind of just a boring player, and I find myself passing on him a lot in drafts. Do you find that too? Like just being center only and a guy that's kind of an efficiency guy, an assist guy, like, and 34 power play points last year. My God, I just saw that. But yeah, I mean, that's a really nice power play performance. I feel like that's where a lot of those points are probably going to come off of.
Yeah. I have been passing on him a lot. I still have him for 28 power play points this year. I do think that they have just a pretty good setup. It was only that one year where it didn't work, and every other year of Ovechkin's career, the power play has always worked. And I just don't see a reason why that can't happen again this year. It did feel like they really figured it out to some extent last year, and I don't see a reason why it's going to regress massively. Just a little bit of natural shooting percentage regression maybe, but nothing like in terms of the actual quality of chances and stuff like that they should be able to generate. But yeah, Dylan Strome being a pass first player, not going to show up as well for fantasy as he might on the actual score sheet. It's worth noting also that his average time on ice actually went down last year, 1757 the year before, 1723 this past year. They really did spread out the ice time a fair bit at even strength amongst all these players. PLD actually, I have to lead the team in even strength time on ice this year with 15 minutes, which isn't actually that much in terms of leading a team in even strength time on ice. So that's an interesting point here, is it might just hold back some of these guys. If they aren't being insanely efficient, then the fact that they're not going to get, the 20-minute treatment is probably going to hold them back from what they might actually be capable of given a little bit more ice time. Let's talk about Ovechkin. I have him for 42 goals, 31 assists, 73 points rather. You have him for 36 goals, 34 assists, 70 points. So we're not that far off in terms of the actual projection. This is definitely towards the ceiling side of his projection. There's more downside than upside from this number in my mind. Last year was unbelievable, one for the storybooks, but it'd be almost unbelievable to see him run it back at that level of efficiency again. That being said, I don't really have a big reason to expect why he can't do the things that really matter for fantasy once again. Like get around this 40 goal mark, get that crazy shot total, 282 shots, I have him for 137 hits. Like all that I think is probably going to be there again. This is with 13 minutes average time on ice at even strength. Like this is a very small, like there are third liners out there who are averaging more even strength time on ice than what I have projected for Ovechkin this year, and that still gets him to these numbers. He gets all of the power play time, and he's just bombing away every second that he's on the power play out there. So that's going to translate into good stuff for fantasy. And I can't, in good conscience, go much lower than this. It's really funny to see in these drafts, some people are like, oh, this is the year. I finally got it. This is the year that Ovechkin just goes away. And like, how did that work out for you with all the other elite players of their day? They don't just die one day in terms of what they do well, and Ovechkin does one thing well and it translates really well for fantasy. And so it's just not a player that I can ever be totally out on. It's not a player that I am going to draft, at this projection necessarily, but nobody, it seems like, is drafting him at this projection. And so I've found myself clicking the name a few times.
Yeah. Isn't that weird, man? Like last year, that was my big thing with Ovechkin. People were still taking him in the second round.
Right.
I'm like, that's no good. I don't like, yeah, he had a magical season. There's no question, but I didn't like the value. And now I'm with you. I like the value. Like 4th round Ovechkin, you exactly right. He does the things we need for fantasy. He shoots, he hits, he gets power play goals, right? He gets goals. The goals are one of the hardest categories to cover. And this guy, I don't see any reason why that's just going to fall off a cliff. I will say that, he had 8 empty net goals last year, which was 3rd in the league, right? And part of that is the Caps got out to a great start, right? So they were able to afford Ovechkin flying the zone and looking for those goals, right? Whereas that's not going to be the case here. He's not going to be out there in the last minute of games. So does his even strength time on ice go down even more? Like, it was the lowest number of his career. So does that go down even more? Is he kind of getting 3rd line minutes and then power play 1 still? Like, it's just, I feel like there's going to be a little bit less than what we saw last year. I don't see him touching really 40 again. I mean, would you get him for 42? Oh man. I mean, it's possible, right? It's absolutely possible, but I feel like there's going to be a little bit off the top with those empty net goals maybe not being there the way they were, right? But yeah, he does everything we like, and he's such a beauty. Like, I think one of the reasons why he's the best goal scorer in the NHL is the mental side of the game and how he doesn't get affected by anything. You know what I mean? He just seems like a happy-go-lucky guy. He's just happy to be here. He goes out, he does his job, and I just like the way he sort of comes off and goes about his business. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of this guy. He's a legend, and he's still going to be relevant for fantasy. And at the cost here, I think I might have him on some of my teams.
Yeah. For what it's worth, like, I don't think it's crazy to think that he could be out there getting some empty net goals again this year. The Capitals owe this man everything, and as long as they're not like in a spot where they're like, oh, we got to really lock down this empty net situation, and it's going to be so much better for us to put Anthony Beauvillier out there instead of Alex Ovechkin. Like, I just don't know if that's what changes the outcome of a lot of games for them over the course of the year. And so I just think there's a lot of organizational deference to Alex Ovechkin, and rightly so, for what he's given to them over the years. Next up, Tom Wilson, I have for 29 goals, 33 assists, and 62 points. You have him for 31 goals, 30 assists, 61 points. I'm actually kind of believing what Tom Wilson is putting down. It really did seem like he took a step away from just being the pugilist this year and transforming himself into more of a leader, more of a offensive threat this year, like a legitimate offensive threat. He's still going to throw tons of hits. I have him for 241 hits this year, 178 shots. Still going to have those, 100 PIMs, but also like I have him for 74 blocks. Like, he does that a little bit, and that's pretty underrated, especially in some formats. I know the blocks weights are super high. So Tom Wilson is a player I've got some time for this year once again.
Yeah, he's an underrated defensive player. Like I mentioned earlier with that second line, like that's just going to keep him out there on the ice. That's why his ice time is slowly gone up, 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 up. And Washington has one of his most successful years in the past little while here, and he's got a career high in ice time. Like, it's not a coincidence. This guy's really changing the complexion of the game out there with his hits and with his defensive play and his ability to put the biscuit in the basket. This guy shot 19.4%, 33 goals, career high. Love that. Yeah, I'm with it here too. Washington has a really nice schedule for fantasy this year. We got Wilson as a right wing. I think, where he's being drafted, like I'm taking a ride for sure. Like, you just have to bake in, like you're not getting him for his offense, right? You're getting him for a safe peripheral floor with the potential for like a decent offense. Like, I could see, I mean, is 65 his ceiling? Like, that's what he got last year. That might be ceiling there, but I don't think floor is going to be that much lower than that. Like, 55-point floor, maybe, right? And I would lean more towards him, being in the 60 to 65-point range. So really like his role in this team, like his role on power play 1. Yeah, he's a beauty. And I think he's great shorthanded too. Damn.
Yeah.
5 shorthanded points last year. And I think that's probably here to stay, right? Like, this is a good team shorthanded, and Wilson's a big part of that. So lots to like about this player. He's doing lots of stuff out there. Absolute dingus. Pretty attractive man as well. Damn. I'm not hating the headshot here. I'm staring at that, and then that's fine.
He's definitely top 5 most attractive league-wide.
I think so. All right, look at the
that's,
jaw. Jeez.
Yeah, you could cut glass with that thing. So next up, Pierre-Luc Dubois might be a player we've talked about a time or two on the podcast in years gone by. I have him for 19 goals, 38 assists, 56 points, rounding down there. You have him for 22 goals, 39 assists, 61 points. Shockingly, you are higher on Pierre-Luc Dubois than I am. Blake, defend your take here.
Oh, I don't have to defend anything, Nathan. All right. All right. You are the one that must defend your take. No. I love PLD. I do. I'm glad it worked out. I thought it might work out this way where he gets a bigger role. He kind of washes his hands of the bad situation there in LA, right? And he did exactly that. It's still luck, right? Like we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, like what is, how he is in the locker room and this and that. But I do remember like hearing about how PLD is in the room from Matt Roy, like, who played with him on LA, saying this guy's a beauty and he was going to Washington with him, and all the stuff about him being a problem in the dressing room is not true. And I took that to heart. I don't know. But yeah, I think PLD, his offense is going to be limited just because of the potentially not being on power play 1, which I think, like he will get a role there, but probably more like the 2.5 minute role, maybe less. Right. And that's going to cap his upside, but he's a great defensive player. He's a great puck carrier, good rusher. And I like that line, Connor McMichael and Tom Wilson. I think Connor McMichael is going to have a really nice season here as well. It's just a great second line, and I think it was a really big part of the success this team had. So I'd like to see the hits come back. This guy stopped hitting. I don't know. It used to be a beefer, buddy. Come on. We need that. But the blocks went up. Lots to like about PLD. I think he could even get more ice time next year. Like, I don't know. What did you project him for? I got him for 17.5, which is more than he received last year, 17, 18.
Yeah, I have him for 17 on the dot. I think probably needs power play to get much more. Like I said, I actually have him for the most even strength on the team. It's just not a team that gives a huge even strength role to any single player. So that's where I've got him. Yeah, I don't have too much to add on PLD. I think he's a solid guy, but unless he's on power play 1, he's probably more towards the streamer side of things. He's not a big time goal scorer, not a big time shooter. And so he's just okay at a lot of things for fantasy purposes, but definitely has found a real home in Washington. I did a projection for Anthony Beauvillier, and I'm not sure why. 11 goals, 11 assists, 22 points. We don't need to spend any time there. Alexei Prodes, I have for 23 goals, 32 assists, 55 points. You have him for 25 goals, 30 assists, and 55 points. Look at that. So Prodes is a guy that you've talked about a little bit as having some interest in. Just under the hood last year, by all the standard regression metrics, this guy just flies off the page at you. Everything was just insane in terms of the IPP, the on-ice shooting percentage, the individual shooting percentage. It was all just absolutely insane. So how much of that is real Protus and how much is just one incredible year that he had? That part, I think, is still very much up for debate, and I'm curious to get your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, with only the one season of sample size, it's really hard to say anything with confidence. But when you watch this man's highlight package and you see the success that the team had with him kind of taking a big role on that top line and shorthanded, like I think there's something there with this player. And yes, he's going to regress. There's no question there. But this is also a guy that he went from, playing 11 minutes, 12 minutes, 13 minutes to now 16.5 minutes in kind of a premium role there, certainly at even strength. And it's just a guy that has the talent to do something with that. And I'm a fan of the player. I think the goals go down, the assists go down for sure. Right. But 55 points, still valuable. I think this is a streamer level guy at this point, unless you're in like a deeper league. I found myself picking him up a lot in our Apples and Ginos best ball leagues because I could get him at 160 or something like that. And Washington does have a good schedule. He's left wing, which was scarce in that format. But in terms of what are we drafting him in a 12-team league? Probably not. I think, maybe with your last pick, if he's there, last couple picks, he just needs power play time, right? And that's not going to happen. So I like the player. He's a great player in real life. I think that would be an interesting pod topic as well. These guys that I think are really valuable that don't get any ice power play one time. And I think Protas would be one of the top guys on that list.
Yeah, Protas is very good at even strength. I will definitely give him that. But he literally basically did not get any power play last year. I've given him a tiny bit. This is with 4.7 power play points this year, just because I figure they can't keep him off forever, can they? But he basically was not given anything on the power play last year whatsoever. So he's basically getting all of this projection at even strengths, and he's doing that quite well. Also, some shorthanded stuff with protest, which is always interesting for people who have that in their leagues. Let's move on to Connor McMichael. I have him for 25 goals, 26 assists, 51 points. You have him for 25 goals, 24 assists, 49 points. The big concern for me with McMichael is I've heard some rumblings that he wants to move back to center, which would really hinder his fantasy upside if he is moving down to 3C. Not so much in terms of the actual time on ice. I still think that would be pretty solid. You get a good amount of actual time on ice in that role. It's more about the fact that he would be playing, instead of playing with guys like Tom Wilson, like Alexis Protas, like Pierre-Luc Dubois, that he would now be playing with guys like Ryan Leonard, who's still obviously a bit of a jack in the box. We don't know what we're going to get with Hendrix Lapierre. Yeah, it gets dicey once you get into the bottom nine there in Washington. So that is my concern with McMichael. I still have a lot of time for the player. Obviously had a huge breakout early in the year last year and then kind of fell off towards the back end of the year. Where are you at on the player?
Yeah, I'm excited about him. I think he's a good young player. I didn't hear about that wanting to move to center, so that's interesting. I mean, why would you be like, I want less time, please? You know, it's like, no, I want to play with the best players possible. Like, I'll do whatever I need to, right? And but that I mean, just hearing that now maybe makes me think there's a little bit more that this player can do, right? If he's playing in a position that he's not comfortable, like, yeah, what happens? What does he look like when he's playing in a position where he's comfortable? I'm not sure if it translates to fantasy as well, right? I think him playing on the wing is probably better for fantasy. This guy just got 57 points in 82 games. Pretty damn nice, right? So yeah, I think he's a great skater. I think for fantasy, if he stays on line two, that's where he's going to eat. What did we project? Yeah, 40. Like, I got him for 49 points. So regression, definitely for Connor McMichael. Still a young player. But I think the ceiling could be like what we saw last year. Maybe we could have a 60-point ceiling. I just think there's enough good players on this team that could potentially get that opportunity first. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Either way, I think, again, this is going to be a guy where you're picking him up as a streamer here for Washington.
All right, and last of the forwards, Ryan Leonard, I have for 18 goals, 16 assists, 35 points rounding up, 16 goals, 20 assists, and 36 points for you. Also, 157 hits is what I've got him projected for, so he does a little bit of that. Also, a chance that he works his way up the lineup at some point, replaces, a Beauvillier, who I have a little bit higher up in terms of ice time here. That's definitely not a high bar to clear for a guy like Ryan Leonard. And I think this is a player that will endear himself to coaching staffs pretty quickly upon entry, and definitely will endear himself to the fans with his style of play. So I think that Ryan Leonard will get some chances, and I think over the course of the year, he may play himself into a bit of a bigger role and may find himself getting into a little bit more fantasy relevance.
Yeah, they got some exciting prospects here in Washington. This is a nice player for fantasy, that's for sure. I'm just looking at elite prospects right now, and they've got shades of the third Kachuk. Oh, hell yeah. Like, give me that. Like, the two of the biggest beauties and ultimate dinguses in hockey, but they're great for fantasy. And when they're on your team, you're loving life. So, yeah, this guy's an exciting player. Going to be, like hopefully a power forward, typical power forward. Probably not going to be driving play the way, more dynamic players do. So he's going to need sort of a good center to play with him there. But, yeah, I like the periffs. They could happen there. Lots of hits. This would be an interesting streamer. How do you think they're going to treat him? Do you think that he will get like, let's say they do put Connor McMichael there on 3C, like, would they consider moving Ryan Leonard up maybe potentially?
Yeah, I think anything's possible. I don't think he'll be in the top six like day one of camp or anything like that, but I do think that there's a lot of potential over the course of the season that he starts to outshine some other guys on the team, and he'll be that guy that is chomping at the bit to get up in the lineup, and he'll be the guy that, the coach points at is like, why can't you play like this guy? And then that guy ends up getting more ice time. Yeah. I think that could be Ryan Leonard this year for sure.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the defense. Let's get the boring guys out of the way first. Rasmus Sandin, Matt Roy. I have Sandin for 4 goals, 24 assists, rounding down to 27 points. I have him for 4 goals, 27 assists, 31 points. I have Matt Roy for 4 goals, 20 assists, 24 points. You have him for 4 goals, 22 assists, 26 points. Neither of these guys are super interesting for fantasy. Both are, Sandine I have for 88 hits, 119 blocks. I have Roy for 137 hits and 143 blocks. So he's definitely a guy to take note of as a streamer for your Bangers Cats leagues. I don't really see a path for either of them to get much more than that. I guess there could be a path to some power play 2 time, especially if Karlsson and Chychrun are on the top unit together.
Yeah, but what's that going to mean? I mean, Sandine, his career high is 11 power play points. That was with Toronto, and then Washington when he did get a little bit of time when John Karlsson was injured. So yeah, now there's 2 guys ahead of him. It's not going to happen. A couple of beefers for your category leagues there.
All right, John Karlsson, I have for 9 goals, 42 assists, 51 points. You have him for 11 goals, 42 assists, 53 points. I think Karlsson is probably just that guy who's going to be valuable because no one's going to want to pick him because he's the old guy. He's not exciting. There's not a lot of upside here. But for that reason, I think he's actually going to get faded pretty hard in a lot of drafts. And I have seen some evidence of that in some early drafts. And yeah, there is some downside risk. Like this could be the year where it really starts to fall off for John Karlsson and Chychrun totally replaces him on the top power play. That is a possibility. But for what you're going to have to pay on Karlsson, I'm actually not that mad about it.
Yeah, I like him a lot. You miss out on some D-man early. John Karlsson's going to be there probably after double-digit rounds, right? You can pick this guy up, and he's going to be on that power play 1. He didn't have a great performance there, which is interesting, right? Only 14 power play points, 1 power play goal, which is very, very strange. This is a guy that usually is good for more than that, but the numbers were decent, at least in terms of his shot and chance generation. But the IPP went way down. Right. So that was just a different look. They, and I guess when you get a guy like Chychrun out there or PLD, they're taking more of the touches away. And Karlsson probably had a bunch of third assists out there on the power play. Right. But yeah, that IPP drop is a little bit concerning on the power play there. So we'll see what happens. But again, this is like one of those guys, like a distinguished gentleman you can pick up later on in your drafts. He's old faithful. I think he's going to be good for 50 points with potential for more if the efficiency goes right.
All right, and lastly, Jacob Chychrun, I have for 18 goals, 32 assists, running down to 49 points. You have him for 22 goals, 29 assists, 51 points. I like that. That'll play for sure.
That'll play.
Talk to me about Chychrun. I assume you think that he's either going to eclipse the 199 shots I have him for, or he's going to be more efficient than the 8.8% shooting percentage I have him for.
Yep, I got him for 9.9. So I have him popping the hell off. I mean, he shot 11.2 last year. So it's not out of the wheelhouse there. I've taken that back a bit, but it's still high, right? So I'm projecting a fairly high shooting percentage there for Chychrun. And then, I just like the player. I like his ability and the freedom that Spencer Carberry gives him to sort of be like a roaming sort of D-man. He's like a fourth forward out there. He joins the rush really well. So creating odd man rushes. He's got a bomb, right? Really good shot. Just great offensive instincts. And I think that he played mostly with Trevor Van Riemsdyk last year. That worked out okay. John Karlsson is pretty good defensively. So if they have that as their pairing, it's going to give Chychrun even more license to sort of get the biz in the offensive zone. I just think he has a green light. And I feel like they need that goal scoring from him. And I think he's going to get every opportunity to do it. So 51 points. I love Chychrun. This is in that tier of defensemen. You got like Chychrun, you got Thomas Harley, and, maybe Luke Hughes is at the bottom of that. You got Miro Heiskanen in there as well. Like out of those 4, who do you like? Just put you on the spot there.
Yeah, it's got to be Harley there. I mean, everybody's on this that Harley is guaranteed power play 1. I'm not there with it. No. It's definitely not guaranteed. But he is the guy who has the nuclear, changes the fantasy season kind of outcome potential. Yep. I don't think Chychrun has quite that, but he could score 20 plus goals with 55 to 60 points and be like a top 10 fantasy defenseman. Like he definitely has something along those lines in a perfect scenario this year. I don't think that's very likely, but he does have that kind of upside just because of the shot volume, because of the goal scoring potential, and the potential that he takes a little bit even more of a step on the power play this year in terms of his involvement. So there are some scenarios for Chychrun that are pretty exciting. I would take Harley first, then probably Chychrun, then probably Hughes, just because I believe in the upside a little bit more, but Heiskanen I have some time for where he's going in drafts as well. All right, top 3 targets, Blake. What you got?
We got Chychrun at number 1 for the reasons mentioned. I got Wilson at number 2. Again, I just like the peripheral floor there. I think, this is a guy that's sort of found a role here, and I don't think that that's going away anytime soon. And then I put Alexi Protas on here just to shout the man out. I really like that player. He's an amazing even strength player that if he gets any power play one time or any power play time at all, you're just adding points on top of an already elite player at even strength. He's great shorthanded. So I like the player. I want to shout him out. I think there's some value there.
For myself, Chychrun number 1. I've got John Carlson at number 2 for that value that I'm seeing in some drafts, and then Tom Wilson number 3. Last team number 32, the Winnipeg Jets. Key departures here: Nikolai Ehlers, Mason Appleton. Key additions: Jonathan Toews and Gustav Nyquist. I think the scale is weighted a little bit more in favor of the key departures here, I would say. What about you, Blake?
Yeah. I mean, you don't replace Nikolai Ehlers with Gustav Nyquist. You just don't. All right. It doesn't make sense, but we'll see what happens.
All right, coaching status. Scott O'Neill really outperformed at least my expectations, and I think a lot of people's expectations around the league in year 1 as the coach here. I think that in a lot of ways, it does mirror the success of the Capitals. They ran extremely efficient all year. The power play was insanely efficient. And I wonder how much of that is them all just buying into the O'Neill system and how much of that is repeatable this year. They're very top heavy on offense, even more so with the departure of Ehlers, and ran really hot all of last year. That has me quite concerned about some downside scenarios for the team in general. What are you thinking about O'Neill and his potential to rally the troops for another President's Trophy run this year?
Yeah, I love what he was able to do, obviously, last year. But losing a guy like Ehlers is going to make things interesting. We're going to have players step up into that role, and it's definitely going to change that second line. You add a guy like Jonathan Toews. What's he going to be able to do? Is he going to be able to handle the rigors of an NHL season as the 2C? Maybe, right? And I think when you're at the top, and it's not like their expected goals and all that stuff was up there as well. Like they just outperformed expectations. So yeah, there's only one way to go down unless you change something fundamentally like underneath. So we'll see if they're able to do that. It's going to take some players on this team stepping up.
Right, power play. Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Morrissey are the power play 1 locks. Ehlers was the other member of that power play pretty much all of last year. Cole Perfetti looks like the natural fit to take over the Ehlers spot. You look up and down this lineup and you don't really see another obvious option. Some people have floated Neil Pionk as a 2D format. That feels pretty gross to me. I don't think Pionk is a difference maker in the way that I think Perfetti could be, and kind of demonstrated himself to be at times in the playoffs. In that one series against the Blues in particular. So I have a lot of time for Perfetti as the guy who gets on here as the 5th member of the power play and is actually pretty impactful. That being said, I do want to note, I think it is actually a pretty big hit to lose Ehlers as a zone entry machine off this power play, and I think they will feel a bit of the effects of that this year.
Yeah, they're historically, like when they weren't giving Ehlers that full power play time, it was a much simpler power play. They were kind of dumping and chasing sometimes, or just being very basic, right? The addition to Ehlers on that power play gave them some different looks, like different zone entries. He's a creative player. So yeah, he's one of the best in the league. So you're going to have to make an adjustment there. Cole Perfetti to me seems like, he should be the guy. No question to me. I don't see anyone else that makes sense there. So that said, he's nothing like Nikolai Ehlers, right? So they're like, this was the number 1 power play as well. And digging in on that power play, they were actually 11th overall in expected goals for per 60, but they were number 1 in actual goals for. So again, very efficient. Doesn't mean that much, right? But just that they outperformed expectations, and now you lost a guy like Ehlers. So yeah, I give it to Perfetti. I think if it's not Perfetti, like, I'm not sure Pionk. I wonder if they would give Toews a look there, or even Gustav Nyquist might have a cup of coffee on that top power play as well.
Either way, it gets grim pretty fast. Let's get into the projections. Mark Scheifele, I have for 37 goals, 49 assists, 86 points. You have for 35 goals, 49 assists, 84 points. This is just where Shifley should live year after year, I feel like. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time here. I think last year, a little bit of overperformance based on just some unsustainable percentages, much like we saw with a lot of the players on Washington. And that's why we have knocked down some of the players on the Jets here this year again. Also, yeah, just talking about that power play. If that knocks down a little bit, that's going to shave some off the top here for Shifley and others.
I do think Shifley has a great floor. Everyone on his line, like as long as they roll that same line out, that's a really well constructed line that I reference a lot in pods because I think it has all the elements you need. And Mark Shifley is kind of the zone entry guy, the supporting the defense kind of guy. He's able to set up chances and he's a great facilitator. So I think the floor is really solid. Yeah, the goals will probably come down a little bit, but I think we're still looking at kind of a point per game Shifley here, and I feel good about that.
Kyle Connor, I have for 38 goals, 52 assists, 90 points. You have for 39 goals, 46 assists, 85 points. Had 97 points last year, so bit of a knockdown here for both of us. It's a really good player, don't get me wrong, but I do think a lot of that was efficiency last year. I don't really think we saw some major change in Connor's game to say he hit a new level necessarily, just that a lot of it was efficiency and really finding a really good complement on that top line. So I think that 90 points is definitely here for him, and I think that's a solid projection for him, but I think last year was true ceiling.
Yeah, and where he's being drafted, it feels high to me. Like I've seen him go early second. I saw him go in the first in one of our APL drafts. It's like, what the heck? Yeah, I'm not here for that. I feel like, yeah, again, we're at ceiling here last year. So even if it just drops a little bit, like that's dropped down from 97. So now, yeah, you've got him projected as 90. I've got him at 85, right? Like I think it's going to be somewhere in between 85 and 90. And yeah, I'm still not sure about the Jets. Is that weird to say? Like they just ran house, right? And I'm still not sure about the Jets. Like, I don't know. Is this one of those teams where I'm like, yeah, remember 3 years ago when the Jets were like kind of crappy, like, and then Shifley and Hellebuck were maybe going to leave? Like, am I still thinking of the Jets like that? I don't know.
Maybe, but I think it is valuable and valid to talk about the Jets in light of just some crazy percentages that went on last year. And yeah, maybe they are just that good. Maybe Arneal has a system that nobody else in the league has, and nobody will be able to figure it out. And the top guys will stay healthy all year, and it'll just all work again. But I think you have to bet a little bit against that, especially when you're creating median projections like we are here. Gabriel Velarde is the third member of that top line. 30 goals, 35 assists, 65 points for me. 30 goals, 38 assists, and rounding up to 69 points. Very nice for you there, Blake. Velarde is a player that I targeted at the end of all of my drafts last year. Seemed like he was really being undervalued, really had clear 30 goal upside to me last year, and nobody seemed to be on him as top line, top power play, most likely. That came to fruition. Really like the player. This year he's being a little bit more appropriately valued, but I still think there's some value with Velarde.
Yep. I mean, he's just a great compliment to Shifley and Connor. He's a great, he's a puck count in the board battles guy. Love that. Great net front guy. Like that's evidenced by his really high shooting percentages over the years. He's really elite around the net, and he had a great performance on the power play last year. 25 power play points, 12 power play goals, career high in ice time. Like, yeah, everything just went really well for Gabe Velarde last year until he was injured, right? But yeah, I think I don't see a big reason why he's not going to be able to repeat that. And in fact, yeah, I've got him for a little bit more than obviously more points than what he had last year. I just think he's locked in a really good role. They need him in that role, and his power play one role is secure as well. So yeah, it's kind of a boring player, but like you said, that value's not really there. You're kind of just paying for what you're getting there with Velarde. And at that point in the draft, I kind of like to look for upside a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. I had Velarde in a couple spots last year. I'm not sure if I will this year.
Jonathan Toews is the penciled in 2C on the Jets right now. I have him for 12 goals, 21 assists, 33 points. You have him for 16 goals, 24 assists, 40 points. You are 6.9 points higher on Toews, which is nice. But tell me why I should believe in the resurgence of Jonathan Toews.
I wish I had a good answer, Nate. I'm sorry. All right. I'm going off what this guy was able to do. Like, but the truth is, this is a very difficult projection, right?
Yeah.
And I think you and I have kind of bookended what the potential outcome might be. I don't see him. I don't see how he can get more than 40 points, not in this first year. Like, who knows what he was even dealing with, like, for the last little while. Obviously, he's been pretty sick. He's had long COVID symptoms. He's had other stuff going on, mental health stuff, right? So, that said, he's coming to his hometown. He's the 2C. I think he probably will get some power play one time here and there, right? I think he's, again, walking into a situation where he's going to be relied upon a little bit. I don't think they're just going to be like, Taves, we're just happy you're here, buddy. Go sit on the, the third line and play, kind of dinky little minutes. I think he'll actually get run out there for some time, right? I've got him for just under 17 minutes, like 16:45 average time on ice. That's not nothing, right? That's a reasonable role. And when you look at the other kind of supplementary players here on Winnipeg, like Jonathan Taves is just as good as any of them. I mean, at least he was, right? We don't know. It's hard to sort of extrapolate what we think he is going to do here, but I don't know. I like his role on the second line. You've got Cole Perfetti there, who I think is going to take a step this year, and he's got access to Jonathan Taves, who has some, acumen, or he did. So yeah, this is kind of a shot in the dark. It's not a projection that I feel super confident about, but again, like I said, I think we're kind of bookending what he might possibly do here.
Yeah, I don't think Taves is going to be relevant for fantasy. Maybe if he got power play one, then we'd take a look at some point in some deeper leagues. But it's pretty hard to be excited about a guy who hasn't been in the league for the last number of years. Last 11, Nemestikov, I have for 10 goals, 24 assists, 34 points. You have for 12 goals, 25 assists, 37 points. Don't think we really need to spend any time here. Not in line for power play time, not a threat there. Operated as the de facto 2C for a lot of last year. Maybe a 2C, 3C, like middle six center alongside Taves. May play the wing on this line here. Who knows exactly, but either way, don't think we're going to get much for fantasy from Nemestikov. Perfetti, though, I have for 21 goals, 32 assists, 53 points. You have for 21 goals, 34 assists, 55 points. And I do see some upside with Perfetti. What do you think his realistic ceiling season looks like here with the Jets this year?
I think that he could have a season similar to Gabe Vilardi, you know what I mean? Or like earlier Gabe Vilardi, like 30 and 30 kind of thing, or 25 and 35. Because they're going to rely on him on that second line. He played with Ehlers exclusively for such a long time, and Ehlers was such a play driver that I think Perfetti has some of that in his game, but he wasn't required to do that with Ehlers. So now that Ehlers is gone, I think Perfetti's going to take more of an offensive role, an offensive driver role on that second line. And I think he has the ability to do that. We saw like some pretty good performances there in the playoffs. I just think it's a player that's going to take another little step here. I'm not fully ready to give him that, 30 and 30 treatment, but I think he's going to get more opportunity. And with the power play time, I think that's going to look really good. Like, how many power play points did you give him? I gave him 20 power play points. So obviously I'm expecting Winnipeg's power play to still be pretty good, and Perfetti to be a part of that.
I've gone for 18 power play points, so yeah, I'm pretty close to that. I think really the scenario where he pops to 60 plus points is probably that he's actually a bigger role in that power play, and it's still pretty elite, and he gets 25 power play points is probably how he gets there. It's going to be tough at even strength with Ehlers out of town and playing with the likes of Taves, Nemestikov, maybe Niederreiter, who knows, but it's not going to be a spot at even strength that looks good on paper at the beginning of the season. That much is for sure. I did do a projection for Lowry, who is projected to miss a good chunk of time to start the season. So in 50 games, I've got him for 9 goals, 12 assists, 21 points. Not much to say about Lowry, but he does throw the body. He's good for that. And I just wanted to shout the man out because I've streamed him maybe like 2 or 3 times over the past couple of years, and like literally every single time he scored a goal for me. So just
champion
beauty.
Bless you,
Adam
sir.
Lowry, captain of the Jets. Nino Niederreiter, I have for 17 goals, 21 assists, running up to 39 points. You have him for 17 goals, 19 assists, 36 points. Niederreiter, I guess, is another guy who could challenge for a power play spot. It seemed like he might have been that guy in times past, but has never really taken hold. And he's one of the streakiest players in the NHL. It seems like every year we get a stretch where Niederreiter scores like 7 goals in 7 games, and then he just goes absolutely dormant for another 2 months. So I think that's what you get with Nino Niederreiter. Worth mentioning, though, have him for 151 hits, so he does that.
I like that dormant Nino Niederreiter. Yeah, buddy, awaken, please. Yeah, he's not too bad. He's good. He's again like one of the streamers I usually look at when on Winnipeg here. But yeah, old faithful again, 35 to 40 points. Whoop-de-doo.
You did a projection for Gustav Nyquist. Bless
I can't
you.
believe you
15
didn't.
goals,
What are you doing?
24 assists, 39 points. You think there's something left in the tank for Gustav?
Of course I do. All right. This man is he does things out there. All right. And again, there's a bit of an offensive hole here with Ehlers leaving. They need a guy like this to come in. He can still play reasonable minutes at the ripe old age of 36. I think that he's going to get a little bit of opportunity here to just be offensive. And that's kind of what they're looking at from Gus Nyquist. And he's a player that could play on the power play as well. He's 1 year removed from 24 power play points with the Nashville Predators and a 76-point pace. Nate, what do you have to say for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, crazier things have happened. I think he probably scores 35 points in a middle six role for the Jets this year on power play 2. But yeah,
just like my projection.
If he gets on power play 1, then we can talk. Josh Morrissey on defense, I have for 14 goals, 50 assists, 64 points. You have him for 15 goals and 50 assists for 65 points. So we're pretty tight on Morrissey there. His peripherals have really fallen off in recent years. I have him for 68 hits and only 110 blocks, whereas before he was actually pretty elite in the Bangers Cats. And that's been kind of disappointing for fantasy purposes, but definitely still an upper echelon defenseman with as entrenched a PP1 role as anybody around the league.
Yep. I mean, he's a tough one. Obviously, we have a nice projection for Josh Morrissey here, but it never feels awesome to draft him. I don't know if that's your experience as well. Like, I feel like he's kind of at the back end of a tier there where it's like, okay, well, I got to get one of these guys. Like, Morrissey's the only one left. Like, how, I just did my top 10 defensemen. I used our rankings, obviously. Like, where do you like Morrissey in there? Do you like, we got Morrissey, we got Hedman, I think we've got our top 5 pretty locked in, but Sanderson is another one. Morrissey, Sanderson, Hedman. Where are you kind of valuing Morrissey here?
Yeah, it is a bit more towards the back end of that tier for sure. I like Adam Fox better. I do like Jake Sanderson a little bit better. I have Hedman actually well above both of those guys. I have a pretty solid projection on Hedman this year, and I think he's pretty locked in Tampa. Great team situation, obviously. And then I have Morrissey a little bit back of all that. He's just a little bit below in points. He's a little bit below in shots. He's a little bit below in blocks. Like, it's just a little bit off the top, it feels like, across
and then a highly efficient team as well, right?
Right, which doesn't often leave you a lot of room for improvement from a fantasy point generation perspective. So I do have him also at the back end of that tier. I think it's more interesting when you start to compare him to, the peripheral heavy guys in like Waiver and Cider, and how do you value him versus those guys in your points leagues. In Bangers Cats, probably you're taking the Bangers guys, but in a situation where you have to make a decision in a points league, are you leaning into the point scoring ability and locked in role of Josh Morrissey, or are you leaning back into the quote unquote safe peripheral floor of a guy like Waiver or a guy like Cider? And that's a different conversation and will vary a lot for me depending on your specific settings. Neil Pionk, last player, 7 goals, 30 assists, 38 points rounding up, 10 goals, 30 assists, 39 points rounding down for you. Neil Pionk, I think, could be a adequate fantasy defenseman with power play 1. Without it, I just don't think, like last year, he had a pop-off season, kind of a one-of-a-kind season from a power play 2 role. Yep. Don't see that in the cards again this year. And so without that, I think he is below a hold, like he's just a streamer level player. But yeah, give him power play 1, and maybe he's in the 45 to 50 point range with some solid peripherals. And now we're talking about a guy that you want on your team.
Yep, not much to add there. Had a pretty efficient season there, power play and shooting percentage. So I expect that all to drop off, but I do expect the periffs to go up a little bit. That's again, I don't know what was happening there. Just in Winnipeg in general, like less periffs all around. It's, I don't know, something to do with the play style maybe, but I do expect a few more hits, a few more blocks from Neil Pionk, so he should be good enough to give you that.
All right, Blake, last one, top 3 targets. Who you got?
All right, give me Morrissey, Josh Morrissey, number 1. I found myself missing out on a lot of guys and getting Josh Morrissey there. So, it's like I said, it doesn't feel awesome, but I feel like you're still getting like I like that points floor, and he's on a great team and he's locked in as the number one. So I like him at number one. Mark Sheffy, number two. Hi, Mark. Just Old Faithful again, and his ADP is going to be down the board as it usually is, which is crazy because, he's a point per game guy for the most part. And then Gabe Velarde I've got at number three. I think, this is a guy that's locked in as well. Line one, power play one. We're looking at 60 points. And again, the cost of acquisition, reasonable.
For myself, number one is Cole Perfetti, just the guy that I think actually has some potential to outperform by a significant margin our projections for him this year. Mark Scheifele, I've noted, I put this in the guide actually, that Mark Scheifele has been faded a lot, especially in sharp drafts. Like people are fading him. He's center only. He's kind of boring. He's the exact prototype of player who gets faded in sharp drafts more often than not. And all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're debating Mark Scheifele versus guys who are going to score like 30 points less than him this year, and you're like, wait a second, what am I doing?
What am I doing?
Do I want fantasy points on my roster? Take Mark Scheifele when he's there in the 6th round. And Josh Morrissey here, as you mentioned, kind of the back end of a tier. It doesn't necessarily feel great to click the name because you don't see like the sky high upside of Josh Morrissey. But when you grab that guy who is the last of the tier at defense and you lock down a guy who does have a really projectable floor, that does feel good to me. And so I don't mind that with Josh Morrissey here. Blake, we've done it. What should the people do if they've made it all the way through all 8 parts of the Apples and Ginos projection series of 2025-26?
You go over to the Patreon here at Apples and Ginos, you sign up for the friendship tier, and Nate will feed you pudding. All right. He's done it for me multiple times. It's unbelievable. It's a really nice experience.
Very intimate.
It's true.
All right. Well, with that ringing in our ears and the blush slowly creeping up my cheeks, let's encourage the people to join the Discord community. Like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, whatever you can do for this video, this podcast to get out to more people. We really would appreciate that. But I think that is going to be all that we've got for this episode and this series. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, terrific free resource. All the micro stats you heard today came from Corey Schneider's All 3 Zones, terrific paid resource. Many thanks to Matt Creamer for the new music, for the intro and outro. That's it, folks. Much love.